8:12, 2012. I am the subject. The first premise that I reason to demonstrate and analyze in regard to the nature of reality, the one as the subject knows it ideally, is the premise that everything, every aspect of the principle of sufficient reason, that is, as it concerns time, space, and causality, that with the interwoven subordinate principle of time, all history is consumed in this premise's judgment. The Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, Roma, Grecia, Egypt, and Sumer, Atlantis, other more extraneous, less indicatively vivacious empires such as India, China, Japan, Aztec, and so on, and so forth, that with the subordinate principle of space, in regard to every aspect of the subject's spirit, found and comprehended from his senses, with the subordinate yet more significant principle of causality, that every aspect of experience that follows from the subject's determined a priori causes, this entirety of the principium individuationis is judged and concluded as an elaborately complex system, as sole objectivity for the subject, that every aspect of the subject's recognition mentioned above represents itself as pure reason, reflection, and understanding for the senses, as it follows for the principle of time. Our subject apprehends various images, paintings, cultural artifacts, and so forth. The Renaissance era in Italy, he makes observations. This era is indubitably unique for its own time, with its own setting and establishment of culturally expressive artistry. The paintings of this era, as this form of art tends to prevail during this time, or the more life-affirmed sculpture found, perceived very frequently utilized during antiquity, tend to suppose citizens with colorful clothing. The background is typically dark and deep. Western Europa, as it was coming to be known, retains elements from the past, yet more recent era of the late Middle Ages, that of the typically perceived grace and gentility of expression found in the subjects of the artist's masterpieces. The subject proceeds further in his study toward objects of reflection from the Middle Ages. Soon he stumbles onto something curious and peculiar, that as he observes his departure in historical time toward earlier, more archaic periods, there's irrefutably a sense of transition between the ages. The Middle Ages now show to his study something fanciful, imaginative, wishful, as though it were pointing to the subject in his current century, particularly the 21st, that these images and paintings unveiled before his eyes appear settled and established as part of an inordinate scheme and system, that this medieval cultural expression, along with the Renaissance, caused themselves into being, not over a lengthy physical sequence of time, as otherwise would be calculated through mathematical means, that of which obey the law of physics, at least as the subject knows it in its present form, but rather as birthed and conceived, one, as immediately upon the subject's recognition of himself, two, as determined and calculated by logical necessity, with the objects of liberty and free will cannot any longer play too much a significant part of the grand scheme and system, as though it were wishful to change it. And three, as experienced by the subject and caused by his own activity, the nature of the representation to come into being most idealistically during the right and reasonable time, which differs from the wrong and irrational time, wherein that what follows in the representation of the medieval images would be a direct and opposite return to the will of the subject, that his activity draws attention from the essence of liberty and free will. He no longer understands his study without knowing that this representation speaks not the right time for him, and thus friction and strife form between the object and the subject. It is best understood that he caused the representation into being with a negative and pessimistic sense of purpose. He moves on with his meditation concerning the principle of time, to cultural artifacts of the Dark Ages. He observes the very obvious deficiency of intellectual prowess and fine cultivation of impractical works during this period. If he is wise in his meditations, he will take this observation as something for what it is worth in its own peculiar and symbolic way. He recalls the above-mentioned premise concluded, induced, that the objectivity of his senses are like material, corresponding solely and singly to his own will. Nothing a part of his knowledge and recognition of things are free and abolished from the very systematic scheme that dominates and necessitates the laws and commonalities of this subject's wakeful mode of recognition. Therefore, his observation of the material presented from the Dark Ages reflects peculiarly a process of logic that has not yet completed itself. There is reason and necessity behind this apprehension. However, in total, the knowledge of it can only be traced to its sound conclusion by reference to other aspects of his recognition other parts of history, other periods in time, and so forth. The Dark Age aspect of apprehension cannot be understood completely and thoroughly without connection and semblance with other parts throughout history, as the subject knows it, such that a better idea can otherwise be formed from a clear analysis in regard to what the Dark Ages truly indicates, as it must be understood that it indicates something for the subject solely, ultimately without exception. The proposition that everything, everybody, every body, every object manifest to the subject's senses, be whatever or whoever he is partly real, insofar as the subject knows this is to be happening, but positing it in his thoughts, and partly phantom, that is the world and its history, and such as he knows it, is no more than an elaborate mechanical system, with only the subject himself truly knowing his realness, while every other part or objectivity that appears before his senses can either be legitimately considered, 1, totally false, as though nothing were happening whatsoever to begin with, 2, partly real and partly false, that objectivity of the subject's senses were indeed phantom, however he knows it to be really happening, whether it be fantastical or not. This fact is synthesized from Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think this second hypothesis is very likely, and 3, that objectivity of the senses is totally real, which can't be wholly true, as otherwise objectivity wouldn't appear to the subject in symbols and spiritual mutually dialectical reflections, hence the above outline of Dark Age illustration, medieval era apprehension, and so forth, that which I attempt here to make it in order to prove, or at least demonstrate more clearly, the nature of this false theorem, the one that of which seeks to prove a more phantasmagorical perspective in regard to the nature of everything within the subject's soul. As our subject proceeds further down the line of history, apprehending the distinct and peculiar images that belong to whatever examined historical era, he arrives eventually at antiquity. He notes that for some reason his possession of analytic logic is now in ruins. Everywhere found with the cultural artifacts of this period, of Grecia and Roma particularly, are representations of solar marble pillars, standing universally yet eroding with time. Many artifacts are sun-bleached and without depth or hue, something happens during this era accordingly, in contradistinction with our subject's procedure to reveal the pure reason behind the principle of time. He proceeds on to Egypt and Sumer and recognizes, albeit still a dead and decaying organism, but a remote, distant, and abstract revival of solar hue found in the sand and brick. Many pyramids manifest during this period, in which the subject is surveying the artifacts and works that stand to represent the nature of whatever historical time he calls into question. Atlantis is almost thoroughly non-existent. His knowledge and experience transcend during this period. Perhaps before this time of Atlantis, his reflection is no longer humanly conscious. It thereby takes upon primitive and natural forms. He returns now to his more initial objects of inquiry, that of the modern period of Western Europa, well after antiquity, when the Mediterranean, Alpine, and Nordic stocks generally coalesce and form together the notions of the Germanic, Teutonic, and Latin Romantic races. He turns his attention to 17th and 18th century Europa, noticing a number of colors and postures that are distinct to these particular eras. There is still a darkness in the background, however the face and clothing generally comes to light. The Enlightenment of the 18th century. He turns to the 19th century. He immediately notices a sharp transition occurring. He recognizes this occurrence happens for his very individual, subjective life is soon coming into being. What I refer here is to the gray-scale photography innovation, suddenly found in the documentation, artificial preservation of people in general, common citizens, aristocrats, and so forth. The gray is our subject's nearness to his birth and conception within the 20th century. By it now he observes the massive plurality and multitude of images and cultural artifacts sourcing from the 20th century. Almost too soon does he now observe a photography of objects in full color. There is consistent cinematic quality to much of the work. 20th century Fox resounds almost indolently. The very meaning behind this symbolism becomes clearer and clearer with each passing moment. Citizens and such are found smiling in photography in full color, as mentioned. Life everywhere and around is teeming. The essence of spirit is fully realized and captivated. It dawns upon him that this 20th and 21st century is his world, that all other causality and matter and so forth analyzed by our subject's senses represent merely parts and aspects of the total pure system, that in which the subject is alive in the 21st century. For how could the nature of this matter, the observations and conclusions deduced from this experience, occupy any realness, that is, any realness of other past eras, as though King Louis XIV, Thomas Aquinas, or Kaiser Augustus, and so forth, had somehow once existed and lived, not as enumerated in various aspects of one subject's consciousness or recognition, but rather as detached and separate from this subject. When such observations made above clearly, if not demonstrate, then wholly express the peculiar and inquisitive nature of the world, That something is truly alive in the 21st century for every century prior and past becomes older, more fictitious, most particularly evidenced during the Middle Ages and beyond, and more deceptively exposed and revealed in the artifacts' natures as something obviously conspiratorial, apart from some totally conceived, elaborately set up fantasy, of which every aspect of the present era points to the notion or fact that life is occurring now, not then. Now, the principle of time, as it is meditated upon and assumed for what it is, no more than a lie, insofar as our subject recognizes it negatively and pessimistically as part liberty and part necessity, this becomes clear with some elaboration. The subject simply understands the principle of time for what it is worth in a three-part triad, the first aspect of which is his recognition that time itself is negative and at most without reality. This is the primary step in which he can understand the nature behind this principle. The second aspect is his recognition of the fact that time itself is as well given liberty, otherwise the principle of sufficient reason itself, time, space, and causality altogether, would not govern and flow at the threshold of matter, that it would be instantly devoid of succession, thus no more than a static block of space, without any further effect. The third aspect is simply the recognition that time is as well necessary, that if the subject were to reason away his existence, to lose track of time, the law of necessity would restore reorder again the correct duration, that the subject is situated within his principle of time, so that no quantum leap occurs sooner or later afterward in order to balance the state of the subject's condition. Thus with necessity, this is basically an example of karma in action. When the principle of space is called into question, the proposition is simpler. Every object, every aspect of the senses is without substance, without fixation or everlasting inertia. The activity of motion perpetually shifts the shape and form of the subject's perception, and if everything before him appears at rest, then a mere microscopic examination of the atomic particles at this position of sensation will cause the subject to reconsider this assertion. As atoms exist within objectivity, whether the reflection of the senses is a lie or not, the atomic particles, when examined closely enough, will appear to the subject regardless of the otherwise delusional nature of his existence. Nothing before the subject, sensed by the subject, can be thought as real, for it is to be affirmed that atoms compose of fire. However, there is a void in between the space of the atoms, that of which represents the nature of water. This void appears in order for the atoms to shift and move. Otherwise they would be fixed and inert, though still pulsating with fire and energy. Thus, the principle of time is not wholly identical to this condition. There would still consist of fiery motion in the atoms themselves. This water and fire dichotomy composes together the fluid, mercurial, and ultimately deceptive state of the world, similar to a bent looking glass that offers only mistaken and erroneous reflections to the subject that appears into its utility. Now, with the principle of causality, the proposition that this subordinate principle is false, or at least without substance, and as well that it is a part of an elaborate mechanical system or scheme for the one and only subject, is similarly demonstrable as the principle of time operates. A mere look into past instances and their resolve, a good example being history, is sufficient to conclude the examination for what it is worth. Now, there is finally established the axiom or maxim, or at least as it goes. So far it states that something is not right here, the maxim being the unreal, wholly personal and subjective state of the subject's condition, that he is thoroughly alone in his world. For it is here and now established that all objectivity, that is, objects that enumerate everything of the subject's senses, human beings, animals, plants, stones, water, the sun and the moon, the stars, the air, the earth itself, and so forth, all this belongs to the subject as the subject's representation, as well as his will. This can be demonstrated more clearly in the way that the subject's representations are the knowledge of the subject's will. The subject's will is the objectivity of his senses, which acts accordingly and becomes a representation through the means of the subject's perception. The subject exists in a world that is both his will, his objectivity of the senses, and representation, his knowledge of his own will. There can be, as elaborated and demonstrated above, only one subject totally alive and experiencing things subjectively, as all other subjects are hereon logically classified as objects. They do not contain that inner essence and kernel of divine knowing that of which only the subject undoubtedly contains. Therefore, to this subject, whatever or whomever he may be, all other objects appear as objectivity of his senses, knowledge of his own will. That is, the sun and the moon, the stars, the earth, the air, the stones, the plants, animals, even human beings are objectivity to the subject's senses. He is sole manifest and alone in his world. This objectivity of the senses just described serve as content, matter, and ideas for the subject. They are not truly alive in the subjective sense, for how can they be, especially after demonstrating above the blatant glare of exposure that history reveals to the subject when upon his examination of it. Finding that only something from the 21st century is truly alive, he recognized earlier that this is himself. Therefore, to proceed soundly through this train of logic, he classifies the ancient Sumerians and Egyptians as necessarily fantastic and a mere figment of the imagination. Thus he must adhere to this procedure and consequently classify the ancient Romans and Greeks as false. He proceeds onward through the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, Renaissance Europa, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, and so forth. The Victorian era becomes clearer, more real, more actual. Finally, in the 20th century, he finds that calling and summoning force, that pressures to awaken his will, that the 21st century alone, with some parts of the 20th to be sure, as this subject was likely born into the 20th century era, is alive, but it would be ponderous and inconclusive to admit of every being together with the subject during his lifetime as likewise alive, for he sees some die and some born, thus somehow fitting harmoniously and belonging together with the very delusion that catalogues the train of historical experience or logic. Ultimately, he must concede the bare and bleak reality that his subject alone is thoroughly the only one alive, as all other beings are concluded to be mere objectivity of his will. Therefore, he understands now that every motive, every spring, bears reference to his will, regardless even how enormous his own universe may appear to be. It is unfortunately not conceived that such a big universe could possibly represent one person, for it does. He understands that because of the dual nature of the void and the atom, with the void representing God, the atom representing man, or the subject called into question, there is inevitable dialectical communication that occurs between the subject and his reflection, so that through his means of intuition and perception, there is his part of the world objectified, as well as God's part of the world objectified, resembling the distinction between the atom and the void, respectively. The subject communicates either with himself or with God. He can only communicate with God by blending together his force and vivacity so as to conjure together both the atoms and the void, as otherwise only atomic matter can be called into apprehension. Thus he would speak to himself in certain negative, undesirable effects. As it must be made clear, the void is as much as everywhere as are the atoms, for within a given body there are a plentiful amount of atoms, but within each grouping of the atoms there are crevices, which signify the presence of God, objectivity as void, objectified as void. Thus, when upon receiving chills from a beautiful piece of music, the subject is in essence shifting and reforming the atomic void structure within his body. The Holy Spirit that is spoken of in religious dogma is merely this possession of void within the objectivity of a body. For God is the void present within an organic body is the soul of it. However, God is atomic as well, as every aspect of the subject's senses is God in essence. However, he is present within it as a hostile, strife-ridden, war-like substance. In various religious dogma, this atomic correlation would be considered as the embodiment of Satan. However, in my philosophy, I deny the reality of this entity, at least insofar as objects to the subject is made known. Otherwise, he is very present and active, though situated in the realm of the subject's freedom and liberation. But more on this later. The subject is situated in a world that is governed by reason. He is ultimately alone and subject to the most grandiose delusion that everywhere are aspects of his consciousness, of his will and representation alone, that these are not independent and self-governing entities, with particular emphasis here on human beings. These agents are in fact zombies, yet at the same time reflect some of the closest, most real and actualized representations of the subject's will. However, ultimately and in the end, they are not alive or thinking or feeling anything within themselves, as though something within them could indeed be apprehended from these objects of reflection to begin with, as it is otherwise impossible to imagine so. Now, the atoms of the void are truly aspects of God at divergent levels, each with their respective potency and sublimity. However, even these levels cannot truly account for the real nature of God, one that of which forever resides in the transcendent universe. One composing of universe atoms taken from the lower grades of universe objectification and comprising the greater grade, that God stations here at this place for the time being, only to transcend even higher once the subject attains greater freedom and liberation from his dream world of reason and delusion. Perhaps it is Satan that resides within matter, composing the atoms themselves. Those not intended for the subject to perceive too closely or to prolong it. He becomes sterile if he does so, thereby diminishes the fortune of his seed, so that his liberation cannot be obtained. This is perhaps the mystery between the father commencing his withering and death upon the conception of his offspring, bestowing his life onto the son of the elder born. On the other hand, everything essentially perceives the subject. However, this is not, for instance, the human individual doing the perceiving, but an aspect and means of God that he utilizes the object in order to perceive, to check in with, and to observe accordingly just what the subject is up to, doing, and thinking too. God perceives the subject from time to time. He does not perpetually pay close or even relative attention to his subject. Even so, at times, he may appear wholly withdrawn for a protracted period of time, wherein the subject's objectivity takes up an autopilot, self-governing method, without the will of God playing any force with it. God perceives the subject's thoughts as well. When he wishes this, of course, the subject apprehends an idea from whatever impression in the threshold of matter that God somehow surveys in a thought and intellectual form, at once a part of the subject's intellect. Thus, like other instances, he determines for the subject the active, passive consequences that precede or finish off as a subjective cause and effect, or karma. As the subject moves too, the objectivity of the senses are utilized by God to receive and attend to the subject's movements. He communicates with exact and profound logic and reason the necessary after effects that rightly follow through from the subject's very movements. Thus, if the subject moves violently, God's objectivity responds with precision, whatever consequence necessitates the appropriate action. I cannot say which one this would be, as cause and effect prove simply too advanced and multifaceted in order to warrant a well-conceived belief as to what consequence God would act with in such a way in accordance with the subject's violent movements. Thus God oversees his subject, the one that is thoroughly alone and otherwise within his realm of knowing, alone in the sense that everything objective is nothing but will and representation of the subject. But he is not totally alone not at all, for God is present in every one of the subject's actions, whether he be wholly attentive to the subject's conversation or governing selflessly on autopilot. The loneliness and despair overcomes itself with the notion that everything is one thing, that of which is God. Even the subject's objective body is God's, even the subject's thoughts and feelings. In essence, nothing subjective is real, but nothing objective is real either. Rather, objectivity is God, and subjectivity is objectivity. It must be known that history, the Middle Ages in its fancifulness, the Romantics in their coming alive imagery, serve only the purpose that of which the subject is given a little bit to play in, and activity to indulge with, for pleasure or for more meditative, contemplative reasons. It must be understood that none of these prior eras truly ever occurred, at least in the same level of reality and actuality that the subject experiences in his own metaphysical and phenomenological form. Therefore, the primary axiom or maxim to be recalled is one of solitude, dejection, isolation, exile, and so forth. Also, it must be clear that the world of which he occupies within, for possibly there is nothing insofar as his senses can perceive beyond the sky itself, that the sky is a water bed similar to the nature that the ancient Egyptians had created for their use, that the sun itself was the abode of the gods, swimming across the sea perpetually by day. The twilight stars are, again, like the daytime sky, merely objectivity of the senses, manifesting directly within the eye of the knowing subject. This world is the only world that of which contains the peculiar, intricate, and elaborately designed history of ancient Egypt, Sumer, Greek, Rome, Europa, and so forth, so that when the subject perishes, as he is undoubtedly aging and wearing down his process of physiological form through age and activity over time, the world perishes as well, with every aspect, every aeon of history, every cultural artifact and work for whatever designed era, every creature and plant and stone, his beloved, the particular sun and moon, all of these things unique for their purpose, designed elaborately merely to serve as objectivity of reflection, meditation, contemplation for the subject that is exiled and dejected from the throne of God. For whatever reason, it is likely that the subject once appeared alongside God, or perhaps was one with him. However, this latter suggestion appears all the more unlikely, as otherwise he would not subject himself to the world that which the subject occupies. For there is a wide assortment of pains and pleasures, deceptions and tricks, abominations and horrors. It seems unwise that a being so powerful that he himself could create the world as a subject and unavoidably knows it, and sentence himself into it, throw away the key to salvation, essentially without any means to escape as he pleases. This act in itself seems rather ungodly. However, the consideration I leave unresolved, as the speculation is entirely unproved. Nevertheless, it is likely that the subject once appeared alongside God, and this manifestation being wholly unknowable, as it represents the Kantian thing in itself, I will not venture to guess what a description of his power might be. The resolute goal for the subject, of course, is to convene harmoniously with God, while manifest in phenomenal material form, if ever he finds a way to escape from his trap. A great and infinitely astounding thing it would be for the subject to hear the voice of God delivered before him while still trapped within his schematic and mechanically designed form. Such instances of this are truly horrifying when God reasons creepily or predator-like during the night, for example, and he creates a boom or howl in the wind or some other strange fantastic manifestation in order to frighten the subject, for he wishes to play with him in God's way, or to dispel some past karma that of which the subject is deserving of this fright, and so forth. The subject cannot escape from his trap within his lifetime so long as he lives. He may construct an elaborate space shuttle and rocket himself to the edge of the universe. Still he will meet with the ultimate manifestation of the void, and thus crumble his rocket or necessitate a return home. If he were to commit suicide, his sentence, for whatever reason given or requested by God and the subject, would not expire, rather it would elongate, thus perhaps a return to his birth state, as it were, before it would commence, or perhaps a whole new and elaborate scheme of time and space would construct by the will and reason of God. The new universe conceived with its own unique history, the subject's own parents and friendships. Moment. And so forth would be allotted. I think it is reasonable to presume the subjects would still reflect the nature of a human being, as is known in the subject's present form, as it seems so right that God would create man in his image. Nevertheless, the subject reconvenes his life, either in one form or another, and pays for his crime, sin, as it is understood and conceived by God from his heaven. Otherwise, God would not descend his Son, the philosophical subject, into the material phenomenal form as he knows it, and suffer his subject in creation something unnecessary and undesirable. The Christus is dismissed simply for the subject is conscious 2,000 years after his death, and remains saving himself without the Christus's blessing, as do many millions of other religious followers outside of the Christian faith, whether they be phantom or not. Their example demonstrates the possibility is a pure and positive representation. Upon meditation, there is little deception or trickery in this direction. God does not seem to mind the subject following this particular lead. When the subject escapes from his trap sentence, he is likely free from the shackle and bondage of reason and necessity. Perhaps he does not will anything any more at all, as otherwise anything imaginable and conceivable designates reason and necessity to some degree. That there is a mute silence persisting, everlasting, that he hears God's voice for the first and last time during his death hour, and at last attains peaceful rest. I don't know whether there will be another instance of a world creation and a fall from Eden. Perhaps this is merely a one-time thing. The reason for God sending the subject into his objective world is wholly unknowable, but there are little clues here and there that may give a better idea as to the purpose behind this speculation. But the resolution will forever remain dichotomous. For instance, the purpose for it is that God is good, that he endures the subject through his whole journey for beneficent purpose, or that the subject is evil and faces his sentence by cause of necessary punishment for some committed malevolent act prior to his descent. Either side is wholly distinct and opposed, however they do not resolve agreeably with the opposite elements. Perhaps love and kindness are to be praised and understood as potential cause, or perhaps death and hardship are to be praised and understood as potential cause likewise. The two forces represent the masculine-feminine dichotomy, the fire, water, air, earth, odd, even, and so on, and so forth. Both are part of God, as explained above, albeit the void aspects, the feminine, water, earth, even aspects, represent a pure aspect of God. Therefore, perhaps it is this cause, the loving, beneficent cause, that of which is expressive of a better example for which God descends his subjects into the phenomenal world. The subject will likely encounter terrible trials and tribulations before he is peacefully put to rest, in order for the reason of God to resolve its grounds for subjecting his creation to the punishment and descendant humanly willed form that the subject necessarily needed to know in order to be cleared and wiped clean from the slate that of which the subject needed to resolve before he was to be finally put to rest. Upon the subject's death, as stated above, the world as the subject's will, the objectivity of his senses, and representation, the knowledge of his own will, ultimately perish along with him as well. August 12, 20-12. Ultimate anima archetype and lost. 8/31/2012. On my Walker mother. For the present moment, I write these following thoughts with an utmost necessity and legitimate reason to thoroughly discard and deny whatever dispassionateness and removal from sentimental interest in relation to part of my societal imagination. My shallow, evasive, and insignificant excuse for so-called mother has infuriated me to no end, when I would reflect on almost every aspect concerning her that I can think of and reasonably apprehend. She is, after these words, to be wholly denied, annihilated, dismissed, and subordinated from my logic from this point on, likely with good reason, until I am no more, in order to purify my memory of her from the unfavorable and selective social logic, from the prejudice of some here individuals and not others. The reason for this being wholly affirmative and revelatory of her corrupt and mischievous character, a character that I see easily and simply as, for one, the necessary and everlasting cause of my worthy, noble Kopecky father's inevitable coldness and disgust toward her. For whatever experience thus acquired from the unfortunate virtuous subjects, ones that fall degenerate to the inevitably disposable partisan selectivity of her ethics, the irrational favoritism, the short-sighted social prejudices, that these ultimately affect with a hard and severe sentiment to the better subjects, with a sufficient recognition of her unalterable delusional and socially mischievous corruption and conductive distortion. My Kopecky father is evidently a transcendent hero, in this case, standing in relation to the little inferior dialectic that she with tireless unethical pleasure instigates, still to this very day. The maladaptive behavior is evident for every and desirably few insignificant occasion that I had experienced with her over the past several years, and this potentiality of the occasions is finally and at last to my happiness done and over with. Her mischievousness unavoidably and insurmountably returns, along with shallow and characteristically false words, to selective bickering, a further acquisition and solidity of false opinion among her few agreeable alliances, the absurd behavior that likely takes place in a pathetic correlation to my own identity, likely for years without my knowing this. However, I realize and recognize this more clearly, with accuracy and conclusion, the absurd and corrupt behavior that takes place, rather frequently in her own socially isolated mischief among the remaining opposed household. She had destroyed my Kopecky father's temperament in the 90s, my will to identify with her as a potentially transcendent, universally pure or wise mother, immediately disappointing me in my quest to identify pure knowledge with her, and thus to destroy with sufficient reason my affirmation of her as a wise or reasonable mother. My adolescent clinical depression and unnecessary 2-year hospitalizations for the time that otherwise should have been a most happy and cheerful experience for me, these are easily a degenerate effect of the unavoidable misunderstanding of mischievous, shallow, evasive, and delusional behavior. I did not receive hardly any support from her, through hardly any means whatsoever, when I had lost a prior employment, occupation, and all remaining money supply, ultimately unable to support myself. She would not even permit a chair or bedspread of hers, not for a single night, for me during the day that my property was unavoidably rescinded from comfort and had me descended into a homeless and car-living condition. I had begged to her for assistance in vain and unwise tears, with terror of my probable rejection, to receive a helping hand from her. She acted otherwise, and even during this terrifying time, I tried with every effort that I could to approach her with the sufficiently good and virtuous intention. She would merely stagnate on a warped, evasive, and delusional memory from an abundance of years ago, during when I was a youth, and thus of course inexperienced in reasonable discourse, as is natural to be expected of a youth. I could already see very fatal flaws, errors, and mistakes in her from the beginning. However, I had merely not acquired sufficiently reasoned commandments yet so soon. Thus, in order to clarify and simplify the otherwise very evident corruption, soon a descent into severe and hard irrational sentimentality inevitably consumed me. It is here, with this corruption of irrationality, that she had merely formed from my ignorant inexperience a construction of an excessively false and evasive image of her identity, thereby making it ever more difficult for my own attempts to overcome manifest pessimism and thus demonstrate to her the worth and credibility that she knows little of, to overcome the suffering, to erase the unfortunate negative and false conception that she had of me. This, of course, did not resolve. Thus she had impurely preserved this conception and formed her excuse to justify the basic unassistance from her during the otherwise very helpless and sufferable times of my prior experience. The repulsive, unethical behavior is thoroughly unforgivable. I had received zero attention, little observation, or sincere praise or beneficent respect from her, from over nearly the entire course of my experience since my maturation, since in ever more introspective and clarifying youth, the introspection likely as a direct consequence of the glaring absurdity, falsity, and unsagaciousness of her character, that later would spurn me to philosophize and understand the nature of mankind to no ultimate end. She merely would attend with her personal selections, once chosen and favored for these subjects, needing not know or concern with their selective one or the other egoism, did not naturally observe or hold vehemence to the glaring absurdity and social mischievousness of her conduct. Thus she herself would feel safer to affirm otherwise disinterested subjects, and thus deny whatever others that possess as potential concern toward her absurdity, those more discerning and sagacious aspects of human experience. This latter aspect ultimately simply refutes the absurd type of her disposition, with good enough reason, but she cannot see these people succeed in her little eyes. She removes myself from her circle of contacts and associations only recently, when after prolonged silence and inattention from her to every now very mature, painstakingly worked on, well-intended achievements, these creations that I had made over the past several years, which are of an abundance and easily available for her to take pleasure or interest in, or to confirm with me every now and then, or for one time whatsoever, that she even observes or identifies with my creation. She does not do this, though, and the reason for the ultimately insignificant removal is likely for she does not desire comfortably to identify with my independence from her, that she fears particularly universal and natural aspects of truth, and that I openly like to affirm these truths, such as mankind's inevitable descent into irrationality, thus a master-slave ignorance, that this comes about from a use of inevitable and further complicated language that tests the ordinary man's patience and ability to discover a good command of it, of which the irrationality is incorrect and undesirable to affirm, for it effects suffering from its beginning, and if left unresolved, effects a further destruction of innocence, or of the transcendence from karma, or from strife and dispute resolved cause and effect. This person is incapable of sufficient reason, otherwise she would manifest entirely different attributes and qualities of her character. Among another, the childish selective love of some and denial of others would disappear, but she cannot deny this behavior from resting, for to change this would ultimately demonstrate to her ego and her selfish concern that she was wrong all along, that pure universal truths otherwise immediately contradict and dismiss her character. The whole prior suffering of my experience owes to its final existence to her phenomenon. Finally and at last I cannot test my patience and toleration of her any longer, and therefore forever dismiss and disown her from me, from a legitimate relation and association of my own account, and from between me and the rest of my biological Kopecki family, and the rest of my biological Kopecki families with ease and simplicity transcends from that false and disposable nature of her character, and thus demonstrates a likable sense of worth and credibility, particularly evident being my everlastingly heroic Kopecki father, but as well my genuinely intelligent, gifted, creative, responsible, and aspiring Kopecki brother Neil. Moment. Darla, Darla Morse Walker. Whatever this name proves of her incredulous worth to others any more, I erase it into subordination of my intellect. To others that read this evidence and severity, I merely desire a reasonable understanding of my prior very negative experience of her, if only one thus overcomes any remaining astonishment or disbelief that this astonishment or disbelief is otherwise unreasonable or unnecessary to affirm. The annihilation of my experience of her returns my thoughts to impressions of better cheer, pure relations, and a more reasonably justifiable affirmation of optimism and empirical happiness. August 31, 2012. Nine 4, 2012. Frigg, my immortal beloved. The following thought is an excerpt from a message to my admirable and lovely friend Frigg that I had done earlier this evening. I would otherwise write a message independently from it. However, my thoughts are covered ideally in this message already. Today was the Labor Day holiday. I was not aware of this in the morning. I had this whole plan set to record a successively well thought out piece at the college today. I had driven down the mountain, feeling perfectly reasonable, readily inspired, and had arrived to an empty parking lot and locked doors. I had felt so frustrated, but only after I had driven back home I did some calendar research and finally understood the otherwise perplexing reason for the college being closed today. My recording plan is set for another day, sometime later this week. It is well thought out work, like I have said. It is to be a 3-movement religious meditation, with 3 recordings, like 3 acts, similar to an opera, but only by solo piano, of course, and each movement is to be planned at around 1 hour and 15 minutes in length. 3 movements, the total length more or less 3 hours and 45 minutes. This work is to be recorded from one part to another, likely in one sitting. The first movement, Pure Hope. The second, Descent. The third, Irrecoverable. It is instead of attentive and motivated by low-ingrained ideas, this time to be Parsifal-induced, where of course the first movement is similar to Parsifal's first act, the second, Parsifal's second act, the third, of course, Parsifal's third act. The first movement should be pure, clean, pristine, natural, transcendent, hopeful, wherein the second movement becomes difficult, irrational, mistaken, corrupt in its conception of principal ideas. The third movement, like Parsifal's third act, is to be thoroughly pessimistic, disillusioned, and knowing the irrecoverable nature of a priori pure human reason. The fall from Eden is to afterward be everlasting determinate. A terrible pessimism holds within the notes. I will try to include motive ideas similar to Parsifal's arrival, after years of lost wisdom and a searching for man's transcendent truth. Gurnemantz's compassion for Parsifal's attainment, his unavoidable recognition, yet again, of his own impure, corrupt condition. A narration should be included, similar to a recollection concerning the process of this pure hero's attainment, the very difficulty in finding the truth. Also, some motive ideas of remembrance and recollection of this a priori truth are to be recognized. Hope is possibly recoverable, and attainment of purity is for once shared between the pure hero and the otherwise corrupt final epoch men, but also that there is a final and ultimate recognition of a true reality that of which nature and clean life may never return, a final tribute to failed responsibility, heard in the darkness of the nationalist calling trumpets. Of course, the final absolution commences. Here is, of course, the recollection of the final Grail Knight's course. The most horrifying darkness is understood in the eternal and ultimate destruction and death of mankind and his lost pure world resources. Amfortas states what is the reason to even attempt significant ideas anymore. The dark apparitions of the world call him with a conclusive impatience into the inferno. He shouts out in final desperation for vain resurrection. Parsifal, or the pure hero motive, arrives. He holds the key to holiness, to truth, to pure reason. He reveals its truth to the others now since lost. A final reaffirmation of the potential to create pure understanding and intellect is experienced. The purification of degeneration is at last begun. Mankind attains a notion that he is still salvageable, resurrecting and thus recoverable. I'm going to attempt this particular piece sometime later this week, For tomorrow, I'm going for a drive down to Temecula, a town several dozen miles south of my little mountain village. Make use of this silly but rather practical little book-making machine that which prints and binds books on command, rare ones, particularly otherwise hard to find. My book that I'm printing is a Wagner sheet music book transcribed for the piano, containing some 200 pages of over a dozen selections of every one of his most significant operas. At the Temecula Library with this book machine is the only source that I can find to purchase a copy of this edition. There are not too many espresso book machines to begin with, as people apparently call them. They are scattered here and there around the country and elsewhere. Fortunately, the closest location to me, for some good reason, is only a short drive and easy to find. This Wagner book that I'm getting was available online to read. Every page of it was, in fact, I studied this book a little earlier, for several hours actually, familiarizing myself and practicing in my mind and with air keys pretty much every one of the 200 or so pages of the music book, particularly perfecting the more difficult passages and piece selections, as well as trying to make some even sense and understanding out of an otherwise excessive amount of incoherence in the thoughts, ideas, and phrases that Wagner's music occurs to me in this book. My word, my God, I had frustrated myself doing this severely. My inspiration had turned raw and merciless. I became overly technical and dominantly correct and right in all aspects of the notes, which were executed with precision and mathematical certainty. It is not desirable to affirm this during a true performance, however, but I had studied these pages tonight with an utmost discernment and meticulous judgment, and I am certain that my technical ability had improved, even over simply tonight, and at least in regard to this music book, by tenfold. I am inspired now to improve my technical ability and to become a legitimate professional musician, but not to forget that transcendent evaluation of pure reason and logic, not to value excessive meticulousness or a determinate fixation on unnecessary correctness and precise execution of notation. Doing this determinately ruins intelligent music. I looked back on prior sheet music recordings of mine and now desire to improve on this, as otherwise I would in the past look over a piece before recording it, maybe once or twice, and simply record just as it is, at the level of an understanding, only insofar as it was then refined and perfected. The effect it demonstrates to other judgments an amateur shoddiness which, for now, I can no longer tolerate. So that I'm going to purchase the Wagner book tomorrow and drive to the college with it just afterward. Not to sit down to record its pages so immediately, but rather I'm going to devote a strong concentration and sufficient amount of time to it, until I'm certain and know certainly that this book is perfect, and thus am ready to record it. So this is my little task for the remaining week to complete. Perhaps by the end of the week I should be ready to record this book, for it will be well practiced enough and ready to do so legitimately. So that sooner or later, probably sooner this week though, the others should get to see over a dozen of very refined and professional performance recordings of many various Wagner pieces performed, and make this certain, without showing observable error or evident misunderstanding in whatever various phrases, which all of this I recognize as a strong task to accomplish, for with Wagner's music, that I find it in this book at least, it contains at first many extremely and totally incoherent musical ideas and phrases, excessive use of unnecessary fleeting notations, as though simplicity and pure understanding are denied in various parts of the music, that is probably an effect of a severe insanity and a strong sterility from virtue, pure spirit, equanimity. There are consistent evasive resolutions from one chord or triad to another, but that eventually this otherwise initially severe and confusing irritation I determined to resolve and to overcome it, so that the correct notes, the right timing, executions, and intelligent usage of phrasing, with clarity and with leaving no idea incoherent or vague of its meaning, that all of this is to be overcome by my studies of this book over the course of the next week, until the music is perfectly understandable to me and easily executed, that I should then record the entire book and get to show the public of it, which I desire passionately to do so for now. However, I remain patient until I know that the time is ready for a recording of its performance. I would like to do this kind of professional study and recording with the entire box well-tempered clavier as well. I've ordered the second book to this opus just a day or two ago. It should arrive soon enough. I will have the complete opus in my collection, and then I will be ready to study meticulously, perfect its initial complexities, then finally record a sufficient performance. So, for now, this little religious meditation work is put on hold until I determine to complete this new inspired Wagner task that I have in mind for now, which I will do this, and so as soon as it is perfect, ready to record, I'm going to spend many hours, day after day, at the college piano, studying this book. During the rest of the week, I'm very determined to complete this task, and thus finally share with the others a much improved technical ability that prior to this, for so many years, I was shrugging and denying it, simply for I had felt it insignificant to preserve. An amateur and shoddy effect had eventually begun to experience and observe in my technique, to myself and to others. Prior to this shrugging, prior to more or less October of 2006, technicality was paid much more attention to in my performance. During this time, my ability was more significant and exceptional than what it has since become over the past 6 years. Hence my strong and determined motivation to resolve this deficiency and overcome this evidently imperfect and unrefined effects. Well, I'm going to begin with this little Wagner task of mine tomorrow, September 4, 2012. 9/4/2012. An examination of human suppression. Again, I beg forgiveness for whatever innocent or unnoble reader that is to stumble upon this unprofessional, unusual, and unsystematic writing. For in this instance, I cannot help myself, but I just had to poke some fun finally, and write out a few of these thoughts that I sometimes acquire independently, when I will sometimes return my reflection to a reading of some of these particular writings from the very youthful, inexperienced, love-denying, and otherwise ridiculously absurd and shallow past of mine. The particular writing below the unedited article, the one above the final part of this entry, is a part of an enormous 70-plus page Old Testament writing, containing dozens of prior youthful poetry, prose work, and miscellaneous thoughts, that of which this writing I'm still currently working on. It is unfinished of its editing, however, but I do not resign from finishing this task, though I have merely been up to doing other things lately. What I think of this old idealism of mine is evidently demonstrated below in short liner notes, which these notes begin in the second appearance of the article, after the original writing is presented. The original writing is presented in a pure, unadulterated form, merely to present the article clearly for the first time, and to leave the reader open to a first impression, to have him experience a better perception of the writing, for what it appears to signify to whatever innocent or unknowable reader, until it is then revealed again below, with several liner notes added together and in between the sentences, to demonstrate just what I sometimes imagine when reading the many evasive, unresolved, and very misunderstood and silly and ridiculous ideas, that I believe that this writing in particular was at that distinct time impermissible for me, in my prior experience, to signify, recognize, or to acknowledge. Fortunately for now, this utter mess or fiasco of the unrefined past is easily clarified, overcome, and resolved. I do not even need to demonstrate this here. It is easily evident otherwise to any personal friend, relative, or understood association of which knows anything about me with sufficiency, reasonableness, or even with insignificance. September 4, 2012. Living in the world of castles and pastures. What is this world I live in, full of humane respect? I want a world so full of hatred. Fear for your life, I must battle. Castles plot the landscapes. In amidst the green pastoral hills, scarlet suns, clean crisp air, plate mail, helmets worn by men. The women are so beautiful. Pretty white blouses cloak their beings. Blonde hair flowing in the winds. Menders of the battling sword. What is this world I live in, full of commercials and cars? I want a world so full of wood, stones and bricks galore. Walk upon the cobbled path, Mjolnir hangs from necks. Transylvanian dungeons, full of instruments of torture of the pitiful, the modern world once lived. Here in my kingdom you lose forever. Liberal thinking extinguished. Praise of autocracy. Hail the dictatorship. You, the feeblest of men. Have you not learned yet the ways of the old? Straighten that wrist, he says. Why, though, am I stuck in this world? Nowhere do these thoughts exist. forced to humaneness, washed and loved. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, technology, the horror of equal men, forced to submit my honor to them, in any war or craft I join. I want a world so full of fear, fear of few men themselves. Create an image, hail their names, worship the gods of Norse. Never submit to another man, lest I say to a cis, throw me south and sodomize. This is the feeling I get. Jousting returns, nights of fight, wrath of our lives for fun. We are the strong, we scare the Christus. Off with his head, we win. Spit on the church remains. Turn the cross down, invert it. We don't need your morals, we don't need your God. We are Ubermensch of the highest order. What are these thoughts I'm seeing? Pop and hip-hop and beats. Splatters of color, lines and scribble. Cast of retards, I think. Into the mist my horse and I roam. No spirit within miles. Free to live wherever I rest. Wanderer of all eternity. Meet a maiden, love her to death. Never will man love a cis. I have the instruments prepared for him. Meet me in my dungeon tonight. Passing the stage of temporary sensation. All that exists defined. Found for ages. Been around forever. Proven correct time and again. Hear the sound of perfect silence. Ringing in my ear I get. Never or ever has the modern man heard the sound of pure nature. Forget the stock market, forget the grubs. All we do see is pure bliss. Full after feasts, alive in my homestead. Purely mine and his. Forget this world I live in, nothing in store for me. If ever I share the lifestyle once lived, you will fall onto your knees for mercy. Shout in joy, cry in angst. I wished you had seen it sooner. For now I look at the world. What have you done? It will never return, you fool. December 29, 2005. Living in the world of castles and pastures. What is this world I live in? This world is imagined as a woman, full of humane respect, full of a heterosexual love and marriage. I want a world so full of hatred, hard homosexuality. Fear for your life I must battle, must play with another man. Castles plot the landscapes, signifies lust of the father. In amidst the green pastoral hills, scarlet suns, clean crisp air, plate mail, helmets worn by men, bondage gear, domination garb. The women are so beautiful. I attempt to deny homosexuality. Pretty white blouses cloak their beings, blonde hair flowing in the winds. Menders of the battling sword. This battling sword is its true beauty. What is this world I live in? Woman, full of commercials and cars, cheer, happiness, pleasure, insignificance, love and kindness. Christian ethics. Woman, I want a world so full of wood, man, stones and bricks galore. Walk upon the cobbled path, fantasize stones, hard as rock. Mjolnir hangs from Mjolnir hangs from necks. Tor denies woman's love. Transylvanian dungeons. Bondage, domination, sadism, masochism. Dungeon, full of instruments of torture. Spikes, playthings, etc. Torture of the pitiful, the soft receiver. The modern world once loved. Heterosexuality no more affirmed. Here in my kingdom you lose forever. Woman loses forever. Liberal thinking extinguished. Woman, praise of autocracy. Hail the dictatorship, lust of the father. You, the feeblest of men, man that loves woman. Have you not learned yet the ways of the old, hard domination ways? Straighten that wrist, you cis. Erect it toward another. It does not fail him. Why, though, am I stuck in this world, full of woman and cheer? Nowhere do these thoughts exist, no thoughts as homosexual as his. Forced to humaneness, washed and loved, forced to acknowledge the truth of heterosexuality, which of course invokes demons. Everywhere I go, technology. Everywhere, cheer and pleasure, love and kindness, Christian virtue, woman, and the horror of equal man. No, the horror of equal men. No man is as homosexual as him. Forced to submit my honor to them in any war or craft I join. His utter fear of woman's beauty, of being submissive, of receiving another. I want a world so full of fear, dark leather, bondage gear, etc. Ideas that signify ridiculous and absurd homosexuality. fear a few men themselves. He stands alone in his condition. Create an image, hail their names, reveal another man, praise his acquisition, worship the gods of Norse. Tor denies woman's love, never submit to another man, never receive, always assert, lest I say to assist, for this would be otherwise too humiliating. Throw me south and sodomize. This is the feeling I get, subconscious concealment revealed clearly. Jousting returns, nights of fight, man plays with another, wrath of our lives for fun. We are the strong, hard, we scare the Christus. Woman, off with his head, we win. Woman is denied to him in the ultimate form. Spit on the church remains, she means nothing to him. Turn the cross down, invert it, turn it to hard homosexuality. We don't need your morals, we don't need your God, for this would otherwise signify a woman. We are Ubermensch of the highest order. He is hard, of an exceptional degree. What are these thoughts I'm seeing? Pop and hip-hop and beats, cheer and pleasure, insignificance, love and kindness to oneself and to the enemy too. This is woman's sentimentality. Splatters of color, lines and scribble, cast of retards, I think, does not admit in this some secret pleasure. Into the mist my horse and I roam. No spirit within miles, no man compares to his homosexuality. Free to live wherever I rest, wanderer of all eternity, never to know the absurdity of his intellect. Meet a maiden, love her to death, clarified rather, deny her to death. Never will a man love a cis, does not admit his love of receptivity. I have the instruments prepared for him. Meet me in my dungeon tonight. Meet for hard, bizarre, utterly absurd BDSM. Passing the stage of temporary sensation. All that exists is defined. All that remains is homosexuality, defined and unalterable until the end. Found for ages, been around forever. Hard for ages, the absurdity been around forever. Proven correct time and again. He is truly and naturally homosexual and homosexual. Hear the sound of perfect silence ringing in my ear I get. Never or ever has the modern man heard the sound of pure nature never heard. It is clarified, rather, in this instance, the sound or idea of absurd homosexuality. Forget the stock market, forget the grubs, forget the small man, he desires largeness. All we to see is pure bliss. Full after feasts, after copulation, alive in my homestead, at rest, at peace, in bed, embracing an other, purely mine and his lust is one, together with the others. Forget this world I live in, nothing in store for me. If ever I share the lifestyle once lived, if ever he reveals his absurd homosexuality, you will fall onto your knees for mercy. Woman will resign from her vain post to convince him never of his absurdity. Shout and joy, cry and angst, assertiveness, receptivity, respectively. Wish you had seen it sooner. You couldn't find a compatible partner. For now I look at the world. What have you done? Woman and heterosexuality triumph. It will never return, you fool. Homosexuality never lasts. He, the writer of this article, signifies the fool. He is ultimately straight, though he cannot deny the ridiculous absurdity of his irrationality and his completely misunderstood defensiveness, for understanding this is a mortal wound to his reasoning. His fear of his mother's purity, her higher rank than he, is not assented to, nor permissible to or acknowledged by him, for the disgraceful reason above stated, at least during this particular time in his inexperience and his otherwise unreflective recognition, is very mistaken in immature identity, for he fears his mother's pure, selfless, ultimately and understandably beautiful form, her substance as such, and her identity too, and this is not any longer something reasonable to deny, but to affirm it, to mature, to transcend together with it. December 29, 2005. Liner notes inserted between the sentences on September 4, 2012. Nine 7/2012. Book recitations. What this task consists of is of 9 separate amateur and audio-only recordings done of myself by reading from 9 different book selections. The whole recording of the selections took about over 5 hours to do, in fact, of talking on end without pretty much any break in between. My throat is sore right now, and I may lose my voice soon afterward. I don't talk to anyone at prolonged lengths in person, however, so this shouldn't be something for me to concern about. I opened up the first of the recitations with a foreword and introduction from Thomas Gabriel Fisher's book Only Death is Real, the autobiography of his youthful Hellhammer experience. God, I get shivers when I read from that book. I can easily identify with him, with his depth and his natural purity and so on, so completely. The second recording is one of my favorites. It is perfect as a recitation, literally, for this recording is of magic spells from ancient Egyptian pyramid texts. This recording was the hardest to do, as the text was in fact very hard to understand, to make it clear while reciting from it. The esoteric ideas, symbols, and so forth are so advanced beyond sufficient understanding to anyone alive today, even to the translators and editors of the spells found remaining still in the pyramid walls. The third recitation is from Plotinus. By this time, during the recording of this entire task, my voice was warm and in command, my ease of logic was more fully awake, and so forth. The fourth is a selection from Hegel, understandably the second most difficult to comprehend selection during this entire task, which I think was an incredibly brave attempt to do. In particular, I know the profound perplexity of his philosophy. The selection of the book I did recite to him from was done almost purely unrehearsed, having read of its section once only months, if not years ago, and I think that my understanding of that section while it was recited was surprisingly spot on and fortunately clear. The fifth recording is from Hobbes' Leviathan, one of my favorite recordings, recited for some strange reason. First, English is the most archaic preserved of the books selected. While I spoke of his words, I had felt that I truly took on a 17th century genuine British character. I had never read Hobbes aloud before, and surprisingly had understood and perhaps made clear to me and to others, and to possibly whatever other more unphilosophical listeners as well, as many passages from him as I can imagine. The sixth selection is from the Iliad. The seventh, a lengthy passage from a book of the British empiricist Berkeley. Eighth, the lengthiest one of all, this particular one being over an hour and a few minutes. Every one of these recordings are at least 15 minutes in length, Some others go up to 40 to 50 minutes as well. It's a selection from the immortal Aristotle, having attempted to read the entire first book of his Metaphysics, around 25-something pages, but merely had made it more or less to the 18th page of it before the time had come, much too lengthy. My throat was by now aching, and my deliverance of logic may have by this point become more unclear, as was evident by later. His particular recording that I was becoming tired and worn out. Even a yawn or two could be heard here and there in the later part of this recording. The ninth, the last and closing selection, is a selection from Hitler's Mein Kampf, the entire first chapter entitled Weltanschauung and Party, of the second volume of his book. The 9 recitations were recorded during September 6, 2012. September 7, 2012. 9/8/2012, a justification of the 9th recitation. I particularly have not lost my mind, nor a sufficiently capability to reason. Neither have I ever experienced this in my past, nor, as I can recognize it, should I lose this ability of mine until the end of my experience either. I am not remorseful for reciting a few-page chapter from Mein Kampf, nor do I need to justify to others my own reasoning for reciting its words, but I am ambivalent toward Hitler to begin with. Within the particular video recitation, my ambivalence toward his logic and choice of words in itself can easily be observed and recognized. However, despite many of the errors, or at least the unrefined and imperfect terminology in much of his political philosophy, I remain respectful to him even in this case, as whatever corrupt effect that carries out his intention and causes him to be forever dismissed and misunderstood by the irrecoverably fallen subjects of the Kali Yuga, or the final winter season of Western mankind. His significance in human soul and purifying aspiration is just like any other genuine philosopher in whatever time and place, easily evident as stood apart from the suffocating degeneration, irrationality, and ignorance of the common, ordinary bulk of the late and severely descended mankind, the unenlightenment of its countenances, the polluted industry, the loss of nature, and of the aspiration toward animal wisdom. so on and so forth. Had he only overcome and transcended from his sentimentality, had he studied, reflected a bit more, reasoned with a greater truthfulness and correctness, his wrath, hatred, and inevitable destruction of whatever degenerate aspects of God's image would not have occurred, especially not to his history's extent. He would ultimately have been affirmed with more purity, with a more patient understanding, even by the truly lost aspects of mankind, such as the common, insignificant, irrational, disputable, careless bulk of mankind. As I see that his unrefined and imperfect, though pure and reasonable intention is what certainly matters most significantly, as over his fundamental erroneousness and mistakenness, I affirm this former aspect of him with the credibility and legitimacy only. In sum, that his unrefined and imperfect intention, unrefined and imperfect, for his manifestation is experienced during a deeply degenerate and corrupt time and place. Therefore his irrationality is only to be expected, especially as well insofar as his own intellect can sufficiently enough handle the madness of his own time and place, but with his intention being evidently and purely transcendent, his intention that evidently, with any study of his discourse of words, of his sufferable sentiment and so forth, aspires toward the garden or paradise, toward the abandoned and negated Eden, or clearly toward the a priori natural state of mankind. This intention is conclusively noble, yet his unrefinement and imperfection overcomes the better potentiality of his intellect. Thus it is understandable that it is a severe, yet complicated study. I am thus ambivalent toward him, and do not affirm him wholly, as I demonstrate above. However, I do inevitably find the general reflective ideas of his philosophy as standing triumphant over his unrefined errors and consequent destructibility and so forth. This former aspect, the general reflective ideas, is easily desirable to affirm, desirable to preserve and to hold on to, as this intention is at bottom a consistence of ideas just as identical to that of say, Plotinus, or Plato, or Aristotle, or Aquinas, or Augustine, or Kant even, etc., or any identification of ideas identical to that of a sage, of course mentioned as one that aspires toward that purification from an undesirable corruptibility or irrationality and so forth. Hitler's case merely in conclusion of his unfortunate unrefinements, for otherwise his intention would have been universally fortunate for the world to hear than to understand with a surprise, led to a wholly unnecessary and undesirable sufferableness. Such a sufferableness to God's affirmed and chosen aspects of his image, most notably. Therefore Hitler is, in conclusion, of course not ultimately a sage or pure rationalist, that of which his subconscious, concealed, internal, and unrefined character otherwise evidently and strongly aspires toward. So again, the ambivalence of his case, he is complicated, but he is not wholly dismissible, as explained above, due to his evident principles toward pure nature, the wisdom of it, and so forth, transcendent above the collapse, the descent, the fall, from above the old yet ordinary reflection of God's now tiresome and despicable image. Just like any significant and deep philosopher, Aristotle, Aquinas, etc., finds and principiates that in my own case this is an undeniable mere reflection of my own identity, and that of which, for my love of wisdom and sufficient reason only, it must remain recognizable and observable to God's imagination, if only he is to cool his wrath more or less in his now severely fallen, old and wrathful condition, whether this be a recognition of Hitler's unrefined reasoning intention, or that of Hegel's and such totally refined reasoning intention. At bottom, such reasoning intention signifies one man's voice and ideas alone. It is not reasonably predicable of the affirmed or chosen images of God, for this would refute God's final preference, but rather of the abandoned, dismissed, left apart from, negated and vilified aspect of God, which this latter, of course, signifies even my own subjective condition as well, along with every one of the philosophers and so forth above mentioned, including undeniably and unavoidably Hitler even as well. The passage recited, in truth, is one of the only philosophical passages in his book that is most near and actual toward a state of pure reason and understanding that I return toward. All whatever other passages of his particular book that can with potential be selected from are unnecessarily autobiographical and subjectively participle, or are of more totally dismissible particular ideas that does not bear any relation to my own intention, its end it signifies, of course, the unrefined and imperfect reasoning intention mentioned above, that of which is a sad and unfortunate effect of his dead and uninfluential time and place, along with his own acquired character, with its ability to reason, which in this case is prone to descend into strong irrationality and degeneration, of course, which ultimately leaves me in an unusually difficult judgment of his own worth, credibility, and legitimacy of a pure and transcendental idealist philosopher. A recitation of him is going to be a rare instance for me to begin with. I, of course, value other idealists and philosophers tremendously more significantly instead than I do that of Hitler's ultimately degenerative idealism. However, I remain undeniably identifiable with only his pure, natural, truthful, and a priori intention, which is identifiable and perceptible to observe in any intelligible reasoner as something impossible to deny. Therefore, this aspect alone stands credible, apart from any conclusive, consequential, effective material destruction. That, in conclusion, is only a severe consequence of his swiftly degenerative unrefinement, not a correlative consequence of his otherwise more truthful intention. That is identical with any other sagacious philosopher of any other time and place, whether such be any more or less fallen into the final in irrecoverable age of the Kali Yuga, such as Aquinas, Hegel, Francis of Assisi, most significantly the Christus, that are far above Hitler's sagaciousness, though they remain within possession of an identical signification of intention. However, with these particular subjects, aspiration, their motivation, of course, turns toward internalization in contemporary God-world resignation, thereby attaining a priori salvation, and so forth proposed, in whatever degree each of them find it, but of course they do so within a far above refined and perfected means and conclusion, so that, again, their credibility and reasonableness to learn from and to become influenced from stand superior to Hitler's own. However, Hitler is not insignificant, nor an affirmed or chosen image of God. He is abandoned, etc., and he desires to overcome God's wrath, his old corrupt age and hatred of pure truth, clear nature, clean air and water, rationalism, and ultimately empiricism, and so forth. The proof of my reasoning to affirm even Hitler, and to make observable recognition of his better, cleaner intention to God's now severely old and fallen condition, found in this particular, very meticulously chosen recitation, is, or should be, clear and reasonable by now. One may continue a good desire to affirm a friendship and correspondence with me ever the more, or one may not. I'm not going anywhere from anyone, insofar as I can make my own choice, but others will choose in whatever sufficient reasoning that they wish to conclude with, to unreasonably abandon me, or to reasonably remain, to recognize and affirm me in our particular friendship and correspondence, with unalterable intention and everlasting respect to any one, as always and forever. September 8, 2012. 9/9/2012. A brief unsystematic reversion. I propose, as an unusual thought, a peculiar, if not an otherwise rather horrifying idea. There is proposed to be a subject and object, a son of God and God himself. However, upon conclusive judgment of this reflection, a recognition is created, that of which there is only one object, in particular at a given point in time. The subject is phantom, in every case. He is inconceivable, empty, air, phenomenal, unknowable, indefinable, and so forth. His senses seem to hold a source. However, upon conclusive judgment of even this reflection, this is denied as well. The source is phenomenal. Nothing is ultimately experienced unreasonably, but neither freely nor independently of just what this is is explained shortly. When this now impossible to know subject perceives his objectivity, his reflection, his imagination, etc., this understood formation is no more than phantom as well, but it is at least sensible and supposedly understood to being experienced, even though it is merely reflection, a limited dialectical response from an understood supposed object to an otherwise clearly empty subject. When this supposed subject looks into a mirror to acquire for perception of his own reflection, or when he creates a photograph or film of himself, etc., there is reluctantly no more than a determinate, fixed, static apparition that appears into this mirror before his supposed perception. His photograph shows no more than a determinate, fixed, static apparition as well, likewise of the film, and so forth, even including the experience of his merely looking down to perceive himself in his own supposedly personal body, his arms and legs, and so forth, being a determinate appearing apparition. The notion of a feeling of pain and pleasure likewise demonstrate this fantastic, very empty nature. Upon a pinch of the flesh or an arousal of the heart, a feeling is just as much a part of the phenomenal senses and impressions as is the phenomenal sensation of perception. That perception is above demonstrated in the subjective sense to contain no credible or legitimate correlation to a subjective understanding, for every perception is mere objectivity and reflection of a dream, a stage act, the senses' source being a mere fixed determination to appear. The sight of an object appears for this duration of time, at this position in space, or insomuch as it is in recognition, but it bears no absolute dependence on the subject's liberty or free will. Every principle is experienced by reason and final causation. This follows through on an unalterable course, never to end. Sentiment signifies no more than touch sensation. This sensation is predicable to the subject itself. However, the subject is inconceivable, phantom, cleverly unrecognizable, as demonstrated above. In this case, the experience of a felt pain or felt pleasure is again identical with the experience of a determinate fixed static apparition appearing in the mirror each time, though here it is to be a determinate fixed static touch sensation, severely difficult to conceive that it is ultimately not a part of a deliberate phenomenal subject, but rather it is a part of the closest idea of God's creative experience, that of which he cannot be so easily deceived or prone to self-destruction, which this self-destruction is otherwise an easy temptation to turn toward, had the severity of the pain or the horror of being without a body not been so difficult to overcome. The mirror's reflection shows a determined apparition each time, one that is not ultimately signifiable of the subject, but merely an order, a decree, and a law by God to create this apparition before him, in order to close the gap of glaring error that would otherwise occur upon the subject's inevitable return to the natural idea of perceiving his own reflection in a lake's water, or in years later a glass reflection. The Lord desires nothing in vain, neither nothing in deficiency. He simply does, in this particular instance, occupy a constructed image for his solar subjects in order to perceive when his experience helplessly turns to the idea of his own reflection. As proposed elsewhere, God is subjectivity and objectivity, but subjectivity is ultimately and solely objectivity alone, though objectivity as well be just as much as phantom as subjectivity, but it is at least sensible and supposedly understood to be experienced. However, it is still dream-like, limited in recognition, and inconceivable to ultimately know, to judge, or to recognize it in any of its general ideas, or even in its supposedly sensible particular aspects as well, as even atomic particles that compose a particular sensible idea are infinite and perpetually in motion. However, this determinate, unalterable sequence and logically conclusive discourse of reasoning ultimately appears to be as such to the otherwise bewildered and helplessly bonded subject. The source of the senses and impressions is untraceable, indefinable, unprovable, indemonstrable, phenomenal, empty, error, and so forth. One is merely born blind and does not know perception. The sight impressions are neither subjective, and in this case nor objective also, as sight is instead readily visible in this instance. Really, every conceivable vision thus appears as a part of the logical discourse and reason of the phenomenal experience. Thus it is determinate, fixed, and unalterable. Every visual perception is one position of recognition during one distinct point in time. If the perception extends into the internal imagination, or into the concealed and potential aspects of the imagination, the sense experience extends only insofar as this. And the sense experience is still one position of recognition during one distinct point in time, though together with an internal or concealed and potential participle of the imagination in this instance. sound, touch, and so forth. Sense experience in general is not dependable on a deliberate or freely willed subject. The sequence of experience follows from one premise to the next, with no final or ultimate conclusion, with an ultimately total helplessness, determinateness, and bondedness of a phenomenal, unknowable subject to begin with. I am predicated of God just as much as an aspect of his otherwise reflective, objectifiable imagination as it insofar conceives. I experience God first hand, to my own initial understanding. My supposed subjectivity is the only source of any sense experience. However, I am ultimately objectivity. The subjectivity is merely a helpless, dependent, and untraceable observation of God. Effectively, it is ideal to subordinate any self-desired autonomy. Even the choice or decision of doing this still is an act of inevitable determination of God's reasoning discourse. Prior to such a subordination, during during an experience of supposed self-desired autonomy, even this too is still an act of inevitable determination et cetera. All and no more, all and no more nor less is determinate observation. The observation is just as much as God observing as is the objectivity being observed. An experience such as this is created with no more nor less reasoning than for God, to objectify and to operate efficiently is otherwise inconceivable terminology of logic and creative formulation. If his closest aspect, his subjective phenomenal sense experience, suffers, then he experiences his suffering for effective resolution from it afterward. He objectifies himself, operates efficiently, and discourses with his dialectical ideas. Causality or cause and effect become ever the more complicated and significant as time succeeds onward. In conclusion, I am reluctantly no more nor less than just as much a function and objectification of God as is the remained totality of my own sensitive, unknowable, determinate, and phenomenal recognition. God is universe, eternity, solar, and absolute. September 9, 2012. 9/12/2012. Frig, my final companion. I do not know what is happening to me anymore. I'm becoming exceedingly more alone from this point in time onward. In fact, my current condition is absolutely frightening to me. Over the past few weeks, I had matured completely. My music recordings had become forever superior than to what they were before. This had included as well my writing and system of logic, my general countenance as revealed to the public and such. I had recorded in particular these 2 or 3 truly significant pieces in memory, in opening prayer, and so forth. And despite the notion that only utter and complete strangers, beside my companion Frigg, do listen to these pieces online, however uncommonly they do this, even so, these friends on the Facebook account have fallen absolutely and perpetually silent to me. Every last one of them. They do not like or comment or message or even view anything positive or significant that I create anymore whatsoever. Half a dozen or so updates have been posted to the site account since August 31, including music, writing, and photography. Not one view or comment or like or message, etc. has been received by any one of them since. Not even by my Capecchi brother Mimir, Neil, who's Mimir, simply put, final, nor even by Freya or by any relatively thought to be close friend. There are no close friends that exist in my life anymore, neither in person nor online. Again, beside my companion Frigg. Insignificance and shallowness has enraged me so completely to no end with its universal abundance that after 6 years of the most deafening and the hardest silence, I can finally no more remain patient or hopeful with any good reason. My recognition is fully realized and understood. But now I'm utterly unheard of, without a single attendant, listener, student, or follower. Nothing produced by myself in the future is to be fresh or new, and acquisition of even a meager following in this instance is totally unrealistic. I had observed on YouTube a particular feature on my account management that would prove how lengthy another viewer's retention remains on one particular video of mine. I had experimented with this feature only to find out that on even the few most popular videos that I have, it is not wise to call it popular. Even that, my Lohengrin Prelude piano recording with 2,000 something views. Almost the entire audience drops out and departs from the film, not even after 10 or 20 or so, not even after 10 or 20 so seconds within it. This is more or less the instance with every one of my 350 plus videos uploaded online. There's indeed almost every improvisation of mine that is attended to for a horrifyingly fleeting and insignificant moment. The remainder of the recording remains forever unheard, unknown, unrecognized, and cared less of, with a likely severe restlessness and irrationally disappointed negativity. I would create positive art. I would receive absolutely no attention or observation. I would write a mere single polemic out of an, of course, helplessly accumulated impatience and pessimistic resignation, and only here I would receive, of course, confirmed and misunderstood negativity and likely hatred. Of course, no more than only from a few others. The negativity in them is everywhere and lingering, as though their only cause to communicate with me is to suck down my intellect into their pusillanimous and abhorrently little inferior world. Their focus on my helpless negativity concerns them, and this alone. They are my object of derision. They do not understand my instead radically more treasured and valued positivity and hopeful creativity, as this too alienates them, for they do not understand it or identify with it to begin with. On my friend list, I deleted around 20 or so the very evidently dead matter persons on my list that were most distant to me, and very evidently determined by insignificant and irrational discreditable qualities. Now less than 4 dozen friends remain. I had lost my Walker mother on there. She had voluntarily removed herself, my own Walker mother, from her list. I wrote this terrible but undeniably true writing about her, that this only easily determines and solidifies the reality that she will never return to me in my lifetime. I only lose additional friends with this writing being published. I could not keep my sentiment concerning her secret anymore. This most painful and sufferable coldness, inattention, overlooking, deafening silence, etc., is experienced from every one of my remaining contact friends. I looked into my friends list the other night and observed each one's particular attitude and correlation to me, concluding that at this rate of my world's rejection and isolation, that it is only inevitable that almost every one of these remaining contacts will eventually delete me within an invariable amount of time. There's no salvaging my friendship with hardly any one of these people, Tor alone, among maybe 1 or 2 other individuals that desire significance or reactivity to the Kali age of God's brightest image, remain likely there, tolerable of my will, and determined to preserve, if not any communication or observable recognition, but merely a hovering connection as an online, incommunicative friend. My Zenga account is definitely silent from this point on. There are more or less 77 supposed friends in connection with that account. However, I post a well-constructed writing with an alluring title. Otherwise, zero recognition and observation is to be completely expected. Not one view is received. After days pass, I reassert the writing, and again, not one single view received in return. I'm easily one of the most unlikable, unobserved, and immediately dismissed individuals online, judging together from my immense output, the rather lengthy time that I've been active, and this in proportion to the sub-paucity amount of only views, rarely verbal correspondence or identification, hardly even once. For that would, for some intensely infuriating reason, be asking too much, that I receive from other people. My Kopecki father rarely contacts me. That is it, as far as my Kopecki Walker family is forever afterward concerned. In my personal life, I am alone every day, every night. The unmentionable, unholy Gehenna abomination predication is exceedingly distant and gone for weeks at a time. I turn on the television's Friends show that for whatever good reason, it is broadcast for a good amount of time during most of the days of the week. The old God gives this show to me, as otherwise the idea of Friends is never again to be experienced by me. The show itself is from the 1990s. There is an unusual oldness to it, a darkness and dream-like quality to it, particularly during the opening credits, signifying my own past, the friends that I had never known, nor will I ever experience in person. I cannot help it, but profoundly love every one of the characters a part of this show, particularly Phoebe, for her character is agreeable and is closer to honest demonstration in human logic, and one's recognition of general absolute ideas being held onto as leading no more than to frivolousness and fallaciousness, and so forth. I feel that I could give a tribute to them in writing, but I'll do this elsewhere some other time, as this show is only one little aspect of an otherwise increasingly bleak and dead-end experience. The episodes are becoming all too familiar with me now. There's a generative lifelessness to my experience with this series. The magic of its potentiality and unfamiliarity is dying, and its experience is ultimately becoming redundant. I had only recently attained a state of pure, clear, simple, genuine rationality just prior to September, only to have it deteriorate swiftly into redundancy as well, as whatever concepts thought about and contemplated in such a state are few, and boredom comes around unavoidably. The magic dies in this instance as well. I had recorded over 5 hours worth of lengthy video recitations from 9 books earlier this prior week, only to afterward view a part of them myself, and notice that this most instantaneously irritable and infuriating sloshing and clicking of the mouth habit that I had developed for the first time in my life, just in time before the recording of this unfortunate project, so that its tick evidently manifests in the videos during at least every couple or so seconds throughout otherwise the entire 5 or so hours of recitation recordings. It is particularly so infuriating to listen to me and likely to others, that I cannot even bear to watch these videos to begin with. They were never listened to in return completely in the first place. They will never be so in the future either, as a result of it such necessarily. The sloshing of the mouth is a habit currently being overcome only recently, with much effort and retraining. But what good is it to have overcome it so late, and not before, during that entire, now categorically rejected, over fifth of a day's time recording that was ominously made? Some insignificant Canadian degenerates with a liberal disposition, but of course with a hopelessly irrecoverable and irrational resolve, coupled with the most contradictory principles of excessive censorship and prejudice toward any ideas ultimately transcendent from his only affirmed and identifiable Cali experience. After I had written an easily understandable, clear and simple, reasonable, near 3-page justification message specifically to him, even as a person that I had from the beginning already known and instantly recognized as unworthy for him to know me, or to correspond with my logic, or identity, or experience to begin with, though I was open-minded and welcoming of him regardless. Having overcome any irrational sentiment, he responds with a brief, excessively corruptible and hostile, warped and revelatory of his true nature and character message onto one of my video pages, that my supposed, though of course ultimately non-existent, agenda aspires next toward writing a love letter to Jeffrey Dahmer, or some other assumed insignificant misunderstanding and ignorant trick that only a winter season dead material apparition would fix his statements as such to an otherwise therefore superior Satya stage creative golden aspirational artist philosopher. He was blocked without hesitation afterward. His correspondence is with a simple justification denied and erased totally. He censors me, I censor him. The fury that I feel that still undeniably remains after this experience sends into my reflection and imagination even further despondency and rejection, failure and hopeless irresolution from any positive and true intention. Pure intention, honest desire, and such is denied by God in this present age. Only wrath, hatred, unenlightenment, ignorance, misunderstanding, irrationality, degeneration, insignificance, shallowness, and sentiment are inevitable to experience between the old Kali God and the otherwise Satyan Paraclan Athens identity of even my own form and substance. I don't know what to think of this general condition anymore. The experience that I'm currently undergoing could justify the explanation of a complete catalogue of an almost perpetual voluminous discourse writing. I simply will not do this here, as otherwise I would expound every aspect of the human condition in a desirably most exhaustive means imaginable, which is necessary to do, but I do not possess the willpower to do this right now, but to do this successfully, if success is in my own particular experience is ever again imaginable to attain to begin with. It is my only remaining desire to preserve the continuity of my will to live, not to preemptorily end it all entirely, which God easily observed desires of me to do so. I will not do so, for this is what the Kali God desires. He will not ultimately defeat me, neither by his hand nor by my own will. I am determined to die of an old age cause, such as heart failure or cancer of some kind, preferably the end while in my bed asleep. Suicide is violently undesirable. The only means that I can think of that can signify peacefulness, and that is identical to an old age cause, is medication overdose. But I expect to hear horror stories what a failure to achieve from this resolves the person's remaining intellect into. The nightmare would be infinitely magnified. The thought of another suicide attempt might be even voluntarily impossible to do so after experiencing such a state. I will not turn to psychological medication, neither to hospitalization. My intellect will not be denied or sedated or subordinated into the commonality and insignificance of the otherwise universally abundant Kali-age degenerate human bodies. This is not even close to a correct solution. Every reasonable individual knows what the correct solution is. This is, of course, a completely re-evaluated, restructured, reorganized, preferably near annihilated state of Leviathan or civilization or empire or constitution. This latter, preferably near annihilated, if only to singularly eliminate the now terminally excessive dead matter of the winter world, which upon reflection and conclusion there is no otherwise immediate or direct means to achieve equality over quantity state. I doubt not, neither incorrectly concern whether even live spring or summer season souls in part succumb under this destruction as well. There must be an authentic and selfless sacrifice of these otherwise significant elements if their brethren condition is ever to resolve to something threefold or fourfold more ideal, salvageable, and perfectible, far above from the dead mortality and lifeless waste matter that it is of course being experienced right now. This solution is not going to be experienced. This is God's final winter season. There is no rebirth after this experience. Mankind's brightest image is unsalvageable, and it is afterward forever dead, and that is it. There is no more resurrection of mankind towards a spring enlightenment or Satya fire. The Kali soul is now unassailable and insurmountable. Even if the Western individual perishes and only dark apparitions remain, material progression goes on until soil and water resources are sucked dry, nature wilts, and the last remaining spirit of the world perishes. I'm concerned for myself too. I truly don't think that I did anything unreasonable to deserve this terrible punishment. God created his here and now closest creation to experience nothing but more than strife and suffering, irrecoverable hope or purity, and everlasting instigation, and met hostility with his otherwise chosen, affirmed, and beloved, insignificant, irrational, wholly unrefined, excessively imperfect, incomprehensibly shallow, infantile, extremely negative and destructive, severely corrupt and degenerate, lifeless apparitions of his own present image. It gives me the idea that my particular experience couldn't possibly be the only one he closely experiences at first hand. He assertively must have created an experience of first perspective apparition during the Satya, Treta, and even Dvarpara stages, otherwise he wouldn't possibly entertain himself with only a Kali Yuga experience. What a truly inferior, sadistic, masochistic god this would otherwise prove him to be. Nevertheless, I had stated before that I will reserve these thoughts for a wholly explicable and complete explanation elsewhere. That doing this sufficiently enough is going to be my only hope and desire to create and establish once again, and hopefully forever afterward, a benevolent communion with God, and thus not succumb to the otherwise ever logical and reasonable desire to end my own life by my own will. Old age death is my ultimate goal, though several decades more of my experience until this goal becomes real and actual is instead a horrifying thought to contemplate. My condition is going nowhere upward. God's old Kali wrath toward me is absolute and eternal. I'm not going to succumb to the dead matter of the winter season either. I'm aware that karma is an unfailing, precise resolve from one end to the other, that it is inevitable to feel better and experience a happier condition. But of course this hope and positive experience is only a raise temporarily from the final fixed, negative, sterile, and destructive natural condition of the age. Therefore the ultimate end resolve is one of eternal triumph of negativity and defeat of chance, spontaneous, and of ultimately vain hope or fire. That's only a forced lie and deception to myself, which a lie and deception under any reasonable condition is wholly unethical, ignoble, and viceful to affirm to begin with, but it is inevitable if I'm going to lie and deceive my reason that whatever particular spontaneous, chance, hopeful, or impulsive moment is in itself not to be without any ulterior, vain, and illusory purpose, for which it is, in truth, that the moment's beloved experience will not ultimately resolve to the natural age and condition of God's present understanding, which it is in Kali. How stupid it is to adopt this mentality, how undesirable and unethical, yet wholly necessary and unavoidable it is to experience this forgetfulness or nihilism. Karma will not raise to hope if Kali is not to be affirmed. A surrender, submission, obedience, and subordination to death, mud, sterility, etc. can only be necessary if God's extraordinary and inescapable wrath is to be appeased. Fire, air, and even water is irrecoverable, done and finished. Only earth remains, and earth is God's desire right now. And he wants uncompromising communion during even this aspect of his time's experience. Satya spring fire is forever complete and communed with. Treta summer air, Dvapara fall water, etc. It is incomprehensible and despicable that his first-hand Kali experience would be an otherwise Satya aspirant, and that because of this clearly evident dichotomy, and only inevitable hostility, suffering, punishment, degeneration is to be its most significant experience. He is mysterious. His reasoning for this particularity, insofar as it is understandable to me right now, is going to be incomprehensible and transcendent from recognition. In the meantime, I don't know where I'm headed right now. I'm afraid, terrified, and ever the more alone. September 12, 2012. 9/13, 2012. Frigg, my final companion, too. I had spent a little time earlier today practicing the Wagner book at the college piano. After I had returned home, I was alone again, but spent a good time thinking and working out many ideas of speculation to very clear and complete extent this time, particularly concerning the ideas of the four yugas: Satya, spring; fire, father; life, affirmative; soaring, formal cause; intellect, generative reason; anima, potential brightness; Hermes, Evie; Homeric Greca. I and a few others alive today are Satya. Treta, summer; air, sun; life, affirmative, hovering; material cause; intellect, corruptible reason; animus, actual brightness; Cato the elder; Helen of Troy; Socratic, post-Socratic antiquity; Frigg, Tor, and several others alive today are Treta. Treta most evidently signifies imperial Roma. It signifies carceral ideas. National Socialism, Fascism, etc. in the dead Kali times tend to aspire and identify ultimately and only up to this yuga. Dvarpar, fall; water; mother; death; negative, falling; down; efficient cause; will; generative sentiment; friendly shadow; potential darkness; Dante Alighieri; the Virgin Mary; Christian Middle Ages; Freya, and many others alive today. If not Dvarpara, then aspire only up to Dvarpara. Dvapara, Christian virtue and wisdom, etc., knowing and understanding not how to identify with the other two higher yugas than this one. Satya and Treta are ultimately adjudged and concluded with irrationality, dismissal, negativity, protest, misunderstanding. Kali, winter; earth, daughter; death, negative, resting, final cause; will, corruptible sentiment; hostile shadow; actual darkness; Tarzan, Sophia; Lutheran, Protestant, Europa. Every body remaining that is alive today is Kali, but Dvarpara bodies and Kali bodies are either dying or dead matter, respectively. But more on these ideas later. These ideas require a thorough expounding and explanation to be relatively understood, at least by any intellectual thinker. Frigg is easily understood to be a strong intellectual thinker, so I'll write to her about these particular ideas in a coming message. She is certainly without hesitation my one true and only friend, one always and forever faithful, profound, significant, and so forth. One that proves within the understanding, behind the words of even her most prior messages to me, her incorruptible patience and faithfulness, her virtuous loyalty, her undying companionship. She says that she is by my side, always here, and so forth. It is these ideas alone that are too good of an expression to be denied, of her precious, desirable, and rare character. There is no good reason for me to deny her and her most profoundly significant companionship with me ever, most particularly as she intends it to be this way, that I thus intend to affirm it in return, with good reason now and forever afterward. She is my one true and only design and foundation of intellectual stimulation, companionship, and embrace, togetherness, profoundest and deepest love, whether she is devoted to another man already, more significantly in her eyes than to me, or that she resides thousands of miles away from me. I do not concern with such particular circumstances or permit them to disappoint me or to bring me to absolute despair. I respect deeply her place, her position, and so forth in this life, and I continue my dreaming happily of her revelation alongside of me, with pure hope, honest desire, heroic intention, and so forth, to continue our companionship just as it should be, just as it were, before this month, before everything and every one else once supposedly a part of me. I was in denial that they would ever signify anything reasonable to me. Otherwise, for whatever terribly horrifying, cold, and bleak reason had vanished, disappeared, and permanently abandoned me, totally, without a trace, and without ever any hope again to recover or to salvage any little bit of their interest or recognition of me. I I won't know until I hear from her confirmation that her respect for me and her mighty desire for me as well, remains authentic, credible, and legitimate, that such passion is still formal, generative, and welcome. I still hope of this. Of course it is so. My words here are of course insufficient, so my holy protagonist's intention, at least for now, is to extend toward her, and to propose my apology toward her again, most significantly, and to offer renewed and restored my otherwise eternal and everlasting embrace toward her, my Frigg, once again and forever after. My prior judgment concerning her only, and definitely most significantly her, is terribly foolish to conclude with, as though good night, Odin, sleep well from the earlier night. This prior wholly negative resolution, again concerning her only, most significantly its Xxii, is easily understood to be unwise to uphold or to determine. After that prior most bleakest communication to her the earlier night, even during the writing of it, more and more so after it was in deliverance, I had immediately felt a powerful desire to apologize to her for every insufficient reason, for as I stated above, she would extend her embrace before me unfailingly and always after, no matter how terrible, mean, miserable, final, and dead a person I will ultimately become. And again, her embrace, and she more than anyone else, does not deserve to experience that coldness of mine that unfortunately, helplessly, irrationally, and without good reason whatsoever had fallen over to extend to her only just the prior day. It is never again to bleed into our companionship, as I resolve it as such necessarily. That prior message to her, especially in the pain that I feel for even imagining those words, and then to my abhorrence of creating those words in the concrete material form, is enough to solidify my promise with the ease and unhesitant reassurance, unalterably and incorruptibly, of my eternal warmth, embrace, and love for her. I sincerely love her, my Frigg, and in my instance her alone. It is certainly not, and never will be, a love out of desperation or despair. My salvation together with her is attained and experienced with universal honesty and understandable identification. Whether friendship with others for me is ever to be formalized again, or whether material artistic success and sufficient recognition is ever to be acquired to begin with as well. She recognizes me. She means everything to me. I embrace her, pure with reason and beyond reason, everlastingly, continually, perpetually, without resolve, whether she resolves to move on from me or not. Either way, I do not forget her. She is indeed and evidently understood to be sent into my experience by preliminary messenger angels. A simple observation to the earliest comments on the page indicates this easily. Preliminary angels introduce themselves to me. Then they ask for my name. I then receive a comment foreshadowing her arrival. Reading, ever since happiness has heard your name, she has been dancing on the streets looking for you. Paraphrase for now, of course. Then she arrives, and our companionship is young. She is still understood to be Nancy. I think at first that she is in her 20s, judging from her perceived photo at the time. That I thought the image was of her, as though it were a current depiction of her countenance, completely unaware that she was thousands of miles away from me, married and old enough to be my mother, an idea that with any potential turn away or unarousal to be experienced by me to her, even in this instance, concerning her perceptive beauty, the beautiful woman that she is, I during then, now and always ever after, proudly affirm everything about her, whether she thinks or is afraid or shy that her perceptive beauty is inadequate to others, but as it concerns me, inadequacy or anything less than utterly beautiful is no farther from the truth than that I feel and think about her, my Frigg. Nancy was given so much to think about. A mighty oak. Oh no. A mighty oak tree was felled. Nobody gives a damn except 2 horses. Perhaps, if I may signify this here, I was this particular felled oak tree, and the horses were her and possibly Freya. I remember an initial exchange of greeting upon her arrival, or rather her generation from the heavens. Some time comes to pass, but then I check into her profile one day, and I find Jake Baddeley's art displayed. I hear from her this what an unexpected and welcome surprise. and ever afterward her reflection of me and our companionship would generate, evolve, resurrect, and age together, eternally preserved, and with good reason, down to the very end of my own experience, down even into the very onset of the bleakest and coldest Kali Yuga of my own particular historical experience, begun just during the end of the prior month, but whatever most absolutely terrible moments that was experienced, evidently this signifies just the prior night. I cannot, in any more sufferable a degree, experience such bleakness, barrenness, and emptiness again, otherwise my final death and mortality would ultimately be experienced. I would only hope that the prior experience of bleakest recognition of a permanent, irrecoverable, absolute solitude, together with its unavoidable, deathly, immortal effect, was as bad as it ever should get. Nancy becomes Victoria Russell for a moment. Such a silly experience as I remember it. Then Louise is finally revealed, recognized and identified. Over time I get to see her with pleasure and enjoyment. Visions of her wonderful, blessing countenance, as well as more close and intimate secrets of her life experience, the snowing house, the artistry, and the good, noble creativity of her own paintings, Tonbridge Castle, the boy Chester, as well as merely listening and learning about things about her and her daily life over time, particularly coming to acquire a deep respect and empathy for her husband, as well as, most significantly for her, of course, but of Britain, particularly of its own history, the architecture, the vast virtuous mannerisms, a man's cap would doff in respect and empathy beside a random funeral procession at Katara, the cultivation of its own art, especially of its philosophy, as this concerns me very deeply. Hobbes, but especially Locke, Berkeley, and Hume, are now and likely from this point on to be recognized by me, likely alone, as some of the truest of the Western philosophers. Anyway, as logic goes for working out those briefly mentioned ideas of speculation concerning the 4 ages of the brightest enlightenment, I will return with my share of response to her more about this sometime sooner or later. I'm doing better now, despite being permanently and utterly abandoned and forgotten from this point on by almost everyone else in this creative experience. However, I'm doing better simply by writing to her and thinking of her alone, in the habit of which I'm most certainly accustomed to doing so, of strong, visionary, cultivated, intelligent, fun, and even quirky. I see this in her sometimes. Truly wonderful and beautiful, both her intellect and countenance, and ultimately the deepest, wisest, and most significant woman that I'm ever likely going to come across and imagine in this life experience, and she alone is enough to warrant a lifetime of contemplation, loving embrace, and incorruptible companionship together with me. I do love her, my frig, whether other men are more significant to her and above me and her and their own bright experiences. But I am only honest. I cannot help reasoning any other way, and I do not even mind her significance to me being unrequited, or as felt less, or even very less, in return or in understanding by her, than it is otherwise felt most significantly and desirable by me unto her. Frig, please, we are to forever keep cheerful. She, especially together with me, deserves light cheer universally. Her Puffin book video is an evident indication of her cheer, the happiness and even silliness that she feels, or at least that she proves it to me, and particularly has proved it to me long before, when our companionship was formally dawned, and she had presented that particular video, insofar as I know it, the first time on her page, and I couldn't help cease from laughing almost excessively at the particular video, which was easily understood to be such a good indication of one significant, very charitable and beloved idealism and observation of our character. I'm feeling well once again. I thank her, my frig, for her unflinching respect, empathy, and understanding of me, as she always proves it as such to me to begin with. Right now, I'm going to watch a series of good comedy shows very soon, so I must depart from her, but understandably only for the time being. I will never finally depart or break off from her, my fig. I'm always here for her and by her side, together with her, as well as she proves this as such to me, as it is truly right to be, and it is simply and clearly desirable to affirm her and us in our permanent and heavenly experienced companionship, as it were, and it is, and it will forever afterward be, always everlastingly until the end. I give unto her my true and right love. She is simply and clearly the most significant, precious, cherishable, rare, fine, cultivated, intelligent, visionary, wise, deep, beautiful, recognized, observed, etc. companion of my life experience. Once again, always and forever afterward. My grace, gratitude, depth, respect, and thanks to her, Nancy, Victoria Russell, Louise, Allison, Victoria, Russell, Jeffrey, Frigg, September 13, 2012. 9/20/2012. Human archetypes as understood through other animal natures. The time is a little over 4 in the morning right now as I write these words. I have settled down onto my recliner and went to sleep at around 5 yesterday afternoon. I would close the window at night, keep the light on in the room, and cover my head between 2 pillows lately. Recently I have understood that there appears to be this very vicious and ferocious, mysterious little animal that resides just outside of my room during the dead of night. I had laughed while watching an online video tutorial a few nights ago, very happily, maybe a little too excessively. However, then suddenly I would experience this terrible and horrific surprise from an animal that let loose its teeth on some other critter, likely a reasonable cause from the unresolved laughter. The growls and snarls that I perceived were one of the most relentless and demonic sounds that I've ever experienced so far, formerly, and up to this point in my life. I immediately turned on the light and went out into the kitchen. I made some food and tried to restore myself from the prior very startling interruption. The beast, likely feline of some sort, would rest outside throughout the remainder of the night, coughing bitterly or making its own vicious wrath known aggressively every now and then. Each time, most significantly, when I would settle down and authentically begin to relax. This occasion reminds me of a messenger to Satan when I was living with my Quebecy father. I understood that this very demonic animal would show up outside of my room each night from around 8 in the evening until sunrise. I'm convinced that it in particular is absolutely sensitive and will easily pick up on even the slightest movement or action from anything. Naturally understandable, of course. It understandably resents myself for whatever reason it actually shows up for, too. There's no compromising with this truth, neither. Eventually, like I have said above, I will close my window at night, turn the fan up, keep the light on in the room, and sleep with my ears covered. This method would tend to cause the animal to disappear. At least tonight I have not sensed anything of it. The neighborhood dogs, Theo and whatever else, respond with acute sensitive wrath, similar to when any one of my own actions or thoughts go unresolved. I reason animals receive in their own little minds one of 7 or so particular human archetypes, as I have studied and understood the speculation over the past day. Animals are very strange. They are wholly respectable and wise, too, of course. Dogs can be very mischievous, however. I came to sense from them that their minds tend to perceive these particular, distinct classes of sounds from their environments. If, like I said above, an action or thought from some object goes unresolved, especially it is left open or questionable to the senses, the irresolution of an action and thought is significantly more frequently experienced with the nature, character, and intellect of men, for men are in fact some of the unwisest and most perplexing of animals upon the general breathing universe, because of the difficulty and complexity of the nature and progression of their abstract language and such. Upon a man's irresolution of a concept or idea, I reason that a dog very probably hears a part of a set of human archetypes, either some fixed idea such as a crying baby. Each archetype is of variable duration and magnitude. A stock belch or flatulence, a generic male's voice screaming, groaning in mortal pain. Sometimes a female's scream is heard in her typically understood nature, thus, though this is often more rare. A generic male's voice of an apocalyptic final and dying scream as he jumps off of a cliff. And again, generic giggling happy baby. A man's curious attempt to make vocal sounds to himself while submerged under water for the first time. There are also strange electronic pitch changes heard from his direction. This is hardest to describe. There are images of a melting face, similar from the Raiders of the Lost Ark scene. There is a total death, silence, but image of a very out-of-place skeletal figure that thus emerges. There are more of these human archetypes that dogs, and very likely other mischievous but intelligent animals of course perceive, when they sense about that a man's action or thoughts, or conduct or idea at Katara goes unresolved. But the above-mentioned examples are easily the most prevalent experienced. They signify as much as I have so far discovered, that any additional discoveries should signify only more infrequently and less significantly experienced archetypes. It seems an animal tends to like the giggling happy baby the most. If not, then it is among the only one of the distinct human archetypes that animals tend to like or desire to perceive. I understood that it is desirable to make whatever animal in question perceive that the human recognizes whatever archetype is being perceived by it as well, that he knows it is in fact occurring. Incredibly mysterious, because of the very probable truth of all this, is the fact that in this instance, the animal, in this case the dog, in question will cease its barking or irritable behavior, then listen to the human for a moment, perceive that the action thought at Katara is being resolved, then it will move on in a more satisfied state of peace. However, the knowledge of the archetypes occurring in a human, which they continue to do so with each and every unresolved cause, leads with the knowledge of this only to a reasonably intense suffocation, for these archetypes are recognized ever the more frequently, with ever the more custom and habit. The humor in it grows old, the occurrence becomes excessive, the animals never fail to perceive these archetypes as occurring. They continue to irritate and act wrathful without any reflection, exhaustion, or resignation in the nature of anything, everything, almost whatsoever. An effective strategy was discovered to dissipate this universal madness, that of which is the creation in the conduct or idea made observable to whatever external sensitive objects as well, most significantly at first of the question, to resolve up and without knowledge or resolution. Describe this particular method rather briefly and very insufficiently, and the animal not only will not perceive any more of these prior significant archetypes in the human's experience, but neither will it irritate or act wrathful or take the otherwise determinate clue to howl or bark or growl at Katara at a subject, for the question perceived to the animal, if left wisely and flexibly unresolved, signifies halt, wait, patient, silence, and so forth. The notion of its being quiets the will, the passion of even the universe. I practiced this method for the first time for several hours yesterday, just prior to heading off to sleep. No spirits, apparitions, no Jungian shadows of the subconscious would retain any desire to haunt or to irritate me. I even experienced a truly strange mystical experience upon awakening one time during the nights, that of almost a holy acquisition of peace and cognitional satisfaction, borrowed from angels or from a now easily affirmed celestial resonance. The question method is the first time that I've more or less expertly practiced this from yesterday night. Hence the understandable, strange, but ever very positive effect that this method efficiently obtained for my subject. The vicious feline beast was nowhere to be found nearby of my senses. I woke at around 3 or 4 in the morning, easily understood to be a general time at which a subject's Jungian shadows manifest and try to haunt the subject most commonly. However, the room, even the entire house, I confirmed it remained friendly and without excessive disturbance. Easily understood as well is just how psychologically negative a subject's condition will soon enough, and at first turn out to become, when left alone to oneself, day in and day out, every day and every night. Particularly exacerbating to this is that the environment is rather isolated, wooded, archaic, and significantly wild during twilight. It is no wonder that, with such an unavoidable development of fear, that spontaneous vicious beasts will begin to appear and haunt the conscience of the subject during the most undesirable of hours, and so forth. Thankfully, for at least tonight, although my conduct is of course naturally to remain irresolute, just like it is of each and every speculative and deep-thinking man's. However, the irresolution was applied to questioning and looking up, with the desire only to attain a potential liberation from an otherwise absurdly excessive and perpetual madness, which a human character's knowledge inevitably brings about. Insofar as he participates in this undeniable recognition, it does not shrug it off or sink into a shallow denial of this everywhere pervading reality, which this latter behavior only causes expected irritation, wrathfulness, and universal despise. For the ever-multiplying and advancing shadows of his unconsciousness, there is no complicated or even singular answer or solution to any of this reality, but except in general for the causation of the subject's will's intention, for the question, the mystery, the celestial, the divine. All and every ground base resolution leads to the causation of one of those above-mentioned negative archetypes, of which nearly every one of them the universe despises or becomes irritated by, particularly when the human subject does not perceive the notion that whatever one of those archetypes is immediately occurring. For how wise or genuine is this man otherwise to be? The universe asks itself. He is ignorant, foolish, uninitiated, unknowing of his own nature. Let us give suffering unto him, in our hope to increase his intellect, and to give to us some objective desire for him to finally interest us in about. This is September 2012. Nothing remains but this bitterness, coldness, emptiness. 9/24/2012. Frigg, a very bright companion. In all honesty, my own individual condition is now totally fallen and indicating utter hopelessness. There are no true other friends a part of my life experience anymore from this point on, at all, whatsoever. There are hardly not any Kopecki family members that remain either. Only my Kopecki father remains. However, my own relationship with him is growing increasingly complicated and dubious. It is difficult to write anything more to him without reasonably irritating myself because of him, due to the perpetually consistent resolution of him to return his youngest, clearly most destructive, hostile shadow son back into his home, and to create not anything more than the truest, most severe suffering unto himself. I do not inherit a life experience with any other actual bodies likewise, by now and from this point on, at all, whatsoever. Like I had said earlier, a particular messenger to Satan is by now gone for periods of time so long that I begin to often wonder whether he is ever to return to this place, that I may instead potentially permanently obtain this very solitary property to myself. There are multiple canine beasts that approximate outside my room throughout the daylight, which attack and destroy any deep thought or speculation that they sense is caused by even my own human intellect. The sudden surprise and the startling effect of their very fierce and hostile howls affects my own heart condition. Inevitably, I shut even the window during the bright daylights now, very frequently. The air in the house unavoidably becomes stale. Intellectual stimulation and societal communication is so utterly devoid in my life experience now that since the past couple of weeks I had slowly begun to feel physically sick to myself, reasoning at first that this physical sick cause was due only to the paucity of any positive intellectual association, that only very recently the physical sickness had been becoming very much worse, to the point that I am by now convinced that a virus or bacterium or some kind is now draining the wellness of my actual body. My appetite is utterly decreased. I find it difficult to consume even 1,500 calories a day. Food is very gross to me by now in all manner of senses. To consume almost any meat, bread, or dairy is almost totally out of the question. I simply cannot hardly hold my stomach to any of these nutrient species. My food supply in the house is definitely minimal to begin with. Somehow, and for some extremely mysterious reason, I had ended up spending over $500 American dollars during the past 3 weeks, not including my monthly rent, and neither did I need to pay any money for my internet bill this month for some extraordinary miraculous reason. Obtaining employment for me, class schedules, these are permanently out of the question, for reasons that I had thought over before, but for now merely find it far too difficult to reiterate them here once again, without this reiteration signifying anything more than a degeneration from that prior reasoning. The lack of this effort to explain his reasoning, of course, bears no negative correlation having anything to do with her Frigg, a very bright companion. Not at all. I'm simply utterly sick and almost dead at the moment, both physically but especially intellectually. To my utter fear of all this, it is the very cause of my actual stumbling upon reading for some extremely mysterious reason the psychological ideas of Carl Jung during more or less the prior week or so ago. Particularly understanding for the first time his very own ideas concerning the shadow archetype, as well as that of the anima, the animus, and the persona. However, at present, my life experience is utterly dominated and overcome by the knowledge of the shadow archetype. Unfortunately, I should never have read about this knowledge in any instance. Particularly dangerous to acquire this knowledge is due to the fact of how easily I will fall victim to the shadow archetype fear because of the severely bleak, hopeless, isolated, solitary, dead end, and lifeless condition experience that I have fallen into myself during this specific month. And ever since I've read the specific knowledge, virtually every aspect and act of my own consciousness has altered and transformed to integrate this utterly horrifying and nightmarish wisdom. I'm even afraid during the bright daylight now, and during the dark twilight my condition takes on this distinct grade of an extreme horror that of which I have never even experienced as such before in my lifetime, not even during my residence at the Palmer Mountain cabin. Only a few days ago, it was deeply late in twilight, and for some unwise reason, I started to look online for information that might demonstrate the very reason for a couple of my YouTube videos containing an orange triangle sign next to the matched third-party content notification. I was rather concerned about the status of my account, specifically after uploading the Death Requiem video to it, which this video in particular does contain literally over an hour's worth of copyrighted music from other orchestras and so forth. Fortunately, when I did finish uploading it, I'd researched everywhere on my YouTube account for any indication of the account obtaining a bad standing, and again, fortunately, nothing bad about it was concerning of it. And even the video itself contained only a matched third-party content notification that is banned only in Germany, and that probably only 2 copyright violations are notified to me about the video in the video manager section of the account, of which the Parsifal Gleiten Vir course and the Ben-Hur Overture signified the only audio examples that any copyright holders concerned themselves about. However, there's a strange orange triangle alert sign next alongside the video's thumbnail in the video manager section. I'd researched almost everywhere that I could on the Google search engine to find anything about what the sign could indicate to me. I would come up to almost nothing. However, as I was researching and looking with a great mystery and unaware fear, of which my self-consciousness could only respond with just a sufficient reflective example of what I was experiencing at the moment, I had come across a YouTube video through the Google search engine that was innocuously titled Bizarre Orange Triangle, and foolishly thinking that its contents would signify anything to my own momentary cause, I clicked on it and then viewed the first few seconds of it. I remember that this experience had occurred at around 3 or 4 in the morning, and as I watched it, I swiftly developed this utmost excessive and infinitely absolute fear, as it was clear to me that this video was indicating a projection of me, yet it was reiterated and brought very dangerously onto the forefront of my self-consciousness as a perfect example of a clearly destructive hostile shadow derived from the darkest, most suppressed, and misunderstood corner of my unconsciousness. The video was definitely silent. The visions shown from it were utterly unclear, misshapen, and difficult to resemble anything friendly or human. The notion within it was no less than choppy, retarded, and slow. The experience of it, but now easily understandably recalling the nature of self-consciousness as according to my own uncalled-for reading of Jung, was horrifying me so much to the point that it had almost sent me into a panic attack. I immediately shut down the computer, turned on the light in the room again, and covered myself in my sheets, regardless of how uncomfortable my own body temperature would immediately rise up to. It turned out later the next morning that I was so curious as to how it was even possible for that experience to actually appear so creepy and dark that I returned to the Creeper's video, of course recalling the probable wisdom that to overcome your fear you must surround, associate, and identify yourself with it at first. I've become so afraid lately, particularly concerning the night, I would figure that to surround, associate, and identify myself with that particular very dark shadows videos would bring me closer to overcoming my fear of pretty much anything that was occurring to me during that present notion of time. So I would then surround, associate, and identify myself the next morning with the clearly destructive hostile shadows account. Its account would contain 90 videos of content, including an external blog, of which the specific YouTube videos, as I would view them one by one, would indicate a predictably very expectant, utmost absolute lifelessness, hostile negativity, and dead-end darkness, just as I had thought it best as such to come to experience of it. The Blueberry Hill is its name. It is located in Australia, and it claims to be an artist, out of which magnifies this very mysterious and dead material idea of pareidolia, or as I researched and came to understand of it, of capturing visual shots through the means of either filmography or photography of utterly meaningless and insignificant aspects of a life experience, and then pretending them to signify or indicate some profound or significant meaning, such as this one specific video that is a film of no more than a dead, blank, white wall for an excessively unnecessary amount of 5 or so minutes. The fear of this shadow lessened, fortunately, with enough association and identification with it during the daylight. As well, I would come to conclude that its own specific nature even signified an idea of lifelessness so completely and so devoid of any intellect and of even any character to begin with, that it would ultimately be something not to indicate any necessity to truly fear about or to concern over, for it could hardly efficiently move enough to conjure anything actually destructive or hostile onto even my own self-consciousness. However, later, night falls, of course, virtually every night since the particular incident, a development and progression of extreme fear and utmost terror would result, that almost every night since, excluding most of just the prior night, the light in my room would keep on until sunrise by necessity of aiding in my own security and protection from the increasingly encroaching shadows. I had developed a severe trouble of making it to sleep. My pillows would block out my hearing almost always, with an attempted consistency in order to minimize the potential conjuration of even further darkness. I understood that if I were either to move or to not move, that the former cause of motion effectively would conjure dead shadows, and that the latter cause of motionlessness effectively would conjure active, very motive shadows, that which therein they would take their opportunity to settle inside the room and to potentially cause a physically life-threatening effect, such as the shattering of a window or the entrance into the room of a homicidal maniac, and so forth. I had looked enough during the prior nights onto the ominously uncurtained two-part window, which is placed immediately below my vision whenever I'm lying down onto my bed, that I had finally understood its symbolic nature, again to my own utmost horror, that of which it actually indicates a pair of hugely black and dead eyes staring immediately at my own countenance, effectively conjuring potentially limitless appearances of its own responsive and reactionary forms of suppressed shadows inside its eyes. Strange, mysterious insects that will appear and disappear inside them precisely whenever my will unknowingly causes them from their concealed, distilled, and lurking residence into their own revealed, active, and effectively motive self-consciousness. I think the only goodness of God that just the following morning I had finally headed out to a rather distant convenience store and had at last purchased, being meticulously certain to do this, a bright, warm-colored curtain, among some other trifle, and at first tried to install it over the otherwise excessively prolonged in time uncurtained window, only to perceive that the curtain rod was only half the length of the entire window. I'd given up from installing it any further for the moment, only to resolve to head down to the store again during the following morning, as the drive is very distant, and to purchase a rightly sized rod for the curtain. I'm now finally closing the curtain. Almost everything concerning my total condition indicates an impending death of my own life experience. However, night falls again, of course, and I can't even begin to come close to authentically relax in my bed, as I from this point on forever know just what the black two-part window indicates in its idea. Therefore, I cared less of my resolve to wait until the following morning to finally hang the curtain up, and thus had gotten up from my bed, taking the curtains along with some duct tape, and shoddily haphazardly attempted to hang the curtain up by this means. I then turned the television on while I was doing this, for I had sensed just how significant an archetypal milestone this would indicate to me to hang the curtain up, that anything extremely negative could actually happen after this point in time, so that the television might signify a warm life element during this process. But of course, again to my very utmost horror, I had watched a brief bit of the television for a second or two, and then immediately perceived this completely horrifying conjuration of a very black, dead, fierce, hostile, dog-faced beast looking directly at me through the screen, extremely close up and with utterly black and dead eyes. I turned the television off immediately after this experience, practically experiencing yet another panic attack. The curtain was soon finally hanged up. However, for one thing, I had mistakenly, for some mysterious, undesirable reason, taped it onto the reverse side, with the grayish dark side facing the inside of the room, and the tape appeared so haphazard that in all concerning its appearance, I swiftly understood the task to indicate no more than a zombie monster shadow barricade, similar to desperately boarded up walls found in truly horrible cinema, or from my own recollection of those early Resident Evil video games, which virtually every aspect, attribute, part, quality of my past life experience but now understandably comes back into my self-consciousness to haunt and to terrorize me with an utmost extremity, for I myself have finally overcome my own characteristic shadowiness and mysteriousness since the beginning of the September month of the Gregorian year of 2012. Therefore my self-consciousness inevitably demands back to me by now, Odin, thou art a shadow thyself, return to thy darkness, and so forth. In addition to the specific utmost horror, I at last had authentically begun to relax in my bed during the specific night albeit just a little bit, and had characteristically opened my eyes to make sure that my experience did not prove to me to be as horrifying as I was sensing it to be, that my eyes would in truth perceive no actual shadow lurking or hovering about inside my own room. And then immediately I would come to perceive the tape was falling, and that soon, with enough time, the curtain would finally fall to the ground completely, uncovering the utterly haunting black dead eyes once again, as though the hands of shadows were in act, gradually pulling the tape off of the curtain by their own will, so that they would invade the otherwise then healing sanctity of my own room. I then, out of the utmost desperation, put on even more tape to the curtain, that fearing that even this would not do enough, I undecidedly stuck a few tacks into the new curtain as well, finally knowing that this would keep the curtain up throughout the night. I then lied down again with the light on, covered in sheets, and with my ears covered with pillows, and drifted back and forth from waking to sleeping. The dreams of my self-consciousness during the remainder of the night would of course signify only nightmares. The following morning I immediately remembered to turn the curtain's bright side to face the inside of the room, as well then removed the tape, and merely kept the tacks within it, tacking a side of the curtain onto the other side of the wall during the daylight, in order to perceive the brightness of the day outside, and to open the window to get some fresh air inside the room that otherwise was not occurring commonly enough. It would understandably be making me physically sick even further. Even so, during the day, the window needs to be closed every now and then, as otherwise the neighborhood dogs startle me frequently enough with their hostile barking, an experience that of which, in my utterly vulnerable and fragile state, is by now too much to endure. However, just the prior nights, the brightness of the curtain would finally come to signify the very place below me whenever I would lay down onto my bed, and indeed the specific night was generally a haunting one. However, I understood that with the light being turned on, that my room was very probably attracting even more increasingly hostile darkness. Therefore, I finally felt comfortable, safe, secure, and protected enough to finally turn the light off. And as it was so, it seemed that the shadows had finally lost a further interest in me, although of course this loss was not to be total, for during precisely 4:18 in the morning, a dozen or so stacked papers had suddenly fallen to the ground, which they were otherwise stacked securely for months on end without any disturbance. Thus an only sufficient explanation behind this sudden cause would be the remainder of the shadows still haunting me in my very utterly isolated, solitary, bleak, hopeless, lonely, and lifeless home. I do not intend to digress so accidentally. However, I want to also include that my condition had become so bleak, hopeless, lonely, and so forth, that out of the very authentic desperation, I had even researched online for a counselor to attend with, and would come up with no positive resolution at all. Not a single counselor within a 60-mile radius from me indicated that she would suit well enough with my own experience, and that many of their pictures posted signified shadowiness even of themselves, as well as the undesirable obstruction that a single counseling session of virtually any of these bodies would necessitate an out-of-pocket expense of at least $100 or so American dollars. Then I went on to research potassium cyanide pills as pretty much the only desirable means that I could possibly bring myself to end my life experience with. However, this too would come up with no positive resolution, for I read of the effects that should follow just up until the death of the sufferer. That would include severe convulsions and the conjuration of pinkish red skin, far too horrifying for me to endure, again while within my severely vulnerable, delicate, disturbing, and fragile condition. Then I even went on to research my own potential relocation, particularly through the means of the Craigslist website. I had researched at first my own general mountain vicinity, all the while keeping in mind to include in the search a subject companion or partner, or even caregiver, insofar as a potential woman would not be too elderly. San Bernardino County was reluctantly searched, Orange County with particular hope that this happier sounding name would yield more positive results. The Lake Tahoe area, even Santa Maria County, nothing whatsoever, according to my own desire, would come up. Any post that proved to be looking for a companion was, of course, a male looking for one. A reason that a female, by her characteristic nature, rarely comes to experience the kind or degree of actual loneliness, real bleakness that a male, in contrast, generally eventually comes to feel. Thus, the expectant acquired resolution of my research. California indicates the idea of the Kali Yuga so understandably that even the first four letters of its name indicate that very specific idea. Nevada indicates to me New Adam, but again for some very mysterious reason that upon my research for a more ideal relocation, even there nothing would come up. The only other states within America that I would sense and feel to entertain me with a welcomeness and positive understanding were Colorado and Minnesota. Oregon indicates Oregon, which I'm not willing to surrender my life into. Montana and Idaho are generally utterly solitary and shadowy. I here list the most prominent potential states that I otherwise would relocate to. However, of which even these states I conclude not to do so. Alaska is by Alaska is by now understood to be the most absolutely, utterly shadowy of all the states. I will not uphold my old solitary idealism anymore, at least not in this instance, as it is otherwise from this point on so exceptionally out of harmony. The Midwest is dead and lifeless. Utah is eternally obscure. The South is mysterious and probably hostile. Hawaii is isolated beyond reason. And New England is an embodiment of a clever European Christian mode or method of ethics, of which, of course, upon every appraisal of God, or of freedom, or of liberty, or of whatever supposedly good object or desire that they adore, there's always sensed immediately after their proposition the subconscious revelation of their true intention. Now join us with Satan, Adam, Odin, and so on and so forth. I conclude by now that there are ultimately two categories of my own life experience. One that indicates a collective objective experience, and one that indicates of an individual subjective experience. The collective objective experience embodies one general series of 4 particular seasonal yugas, just as the individual subjective experience embodies one general series of 4 particular seasonal yugas as well. The collective objective experience represents the Satya, spring, father, etc. Yuga of Homeric Kraka, and this goes on until the point of Socrates' own supposed individual subjective life experience, of which by this point in time the Treta, summer, sun, etc. Yuga is in general experienced, and this goes on until the time of the end of antiquity, of which the Dvapara, fall, mother, etc. Yuga begins with the Dark Ages, and this goes on to the High Middle Ages, and on until the Late Middle Ages, of which the Kali, winter, daughter, etc. Yuga begins with the onset and commencement of Martin Luther Protestantism, and this goes on to the formal general end of the world's brightest image. There are probably 4 parts to each of these general collective objective yugas as well, each part of which indicates the seasonal yugas in themselves, from the Satya to the Treta to the Dvapara to the Kali, each within Greco's Satya, Roma's Treta, Christendom's Dvapara, and final Europa's Kali. As it goes to the individual subjective experience, the general Satya Yuga was experienced during the Gregorian time of 1988 until 1994. The general Treta Yuga was experienced from, again, the Gregorian time of 1994 until 2000. The general Dvapara Yuga from 2000 until 2006. And the general Kali Yugas, and the general Kali Yuga from 2006 until 2012, with each seasonal yuga inhering 4 seasonal yugas in themselves, each lasting probably more or less 1 or so years. The year of 1987 is unaccounted for. This is my supposed year of conception, for it signifies a point of time in my life experience that is utterly unknowable to me and almost completely indemonstrable to ascertain ever of its own occurrence, other than to carbon date a birth certificate. For example, there is ultimately no evidence of my life experience proving itself to be conscious, apparent, or manifest during that point in time. As it goes of each qualitative attribute that applies to each of the seasonal yugas, found expounded upon more elaborately in the beginning of the Freak, My Final Companion 2 writing. The first 2 seasonal yugas of, in this instance, the individual subjective experience indicate life, daylight, consciousness, and clearly actual experience, for example, of any body experienced by my own consciousness from prior to the 3rd millennium, that is in fact experienced again afterward the onset of the 3rd millennium. Its specific body will not be particularly shadowy. It will contain at least some parts of remaining life, daylight, consciousness, etc., etc., within its own appearance, though its specific body is still to remain essentially shadowy. However, by the onset of the 3rd millennium, or at least by the onset of the individual subjective Dvapara Yuga, the individual subjective life experience immediately reverts to death, twilight, self-consciousness, and cleverly actual experience, with virtually every body experienced afterward. From this point in time, it signifies either a cleverly destructive hostile shadow or clearly destructive hostile shadow. Sometimes a particularly cleverly destructive hostile shadow conceals so cleverly its own nature that it appears to the life experience to indicate a variation of positive intentions, sometimes of positive kindness, gentility, respect, friendliness, and so forth, that it may last so prolonged that a friendship with its appearance can last potentially until the end of the individual subjective life experience altogether, without the shadow archetype ever at all ultimately revealing its own nature to the unknowingly individual subjective life experience. However, almost each of every remaining cleverly destructive hostile shadow in general should sooner or later inevitably reveal its very own nature to the individual subject, wherein the individual subject of life experience identifies probably sufficiently enough or too excessively prolonged of a time with the particular category of the shadow archetype. Clearly destructive hostile shadows necessitate little reasonable explanation. The individual subjective life experience of its own general Kali Yuga has either probably attained its end by now, or it will do so probably by the month of October of the year 2012. To the best of my knowledge, is that each individual subjective experience general Yuga seemingly begins with one Yuga and ends it over to the next following general Yuga during the October month. For example, the October of 1988 Satya Yuga commencement signifies the birth and conception of my Kopeki brother Mimir. The October of 1994 Treta Yuga commencement signifies the birth and conception that of a messenger to Satan, particularly so in the female way. Hell, particularly so. True emphasis on final emphasis on Amen. The specific month of the October of 2000 of the specific month of October of 2000 Dvarpara Yuga commencement is right now for mostly some mysterious reason rather obscure to me. However, the October of 2006 Kali Yuga commencement easily indicates the particular fall, transformation, and death of the Dvarpara Yuga, and of course the very onset and commencement of the final individual subjective experience in general Kali Yuga. Each fundamental October month indicates a significant fall, transformation, and death of the prior Yuga, and the onset and commencement of the next following subsequent general Yuga. The October of 1988 onset commencement is preceded by the fall, transformation, and death from absolute nothingness, inconceivability, impossibility, and so forth. I shall mention for here and now that the ultimate moral reason of the total life experience is reserved ultimately and only for the sake, purpose, and reason of God, that of which it in itself indicates an experience of pleasure, entertainment, distraction, and desire for him. He is totally removed from every time and from every place from the life experience occurrence. Even so, a most compassionate, desperate, excessive, and so forth cry or shout for prayer, mercy, rescue, assistance, help, or deliverance is impossible for God to answer unto. He is the author of the life experience. He writes, creates, and constructs his creation beforehand a priori, then sets it into motion, and watches it determinately from the beginning to the end, with no potential or actual intervention, neither voluntarily or involuntarily, to be done so. The creation, occupation, play, life experience, etc. has its own particular end, of course, as even the individual subject in its own relative understanding perceives its impending mortality, and that probably upon the end of the very experience, God will already have put together another life experience, and having set it into motion, would watch it determinately from the beginning to the end, and so forth. He occupies himself with pleasure and reasonable satisfaction. This is a distinct process of his that is probably always everlasting. It is very likely that each individual subjective experience contains within its own contents its very own specific and distinct collective objective experience, wherein a Satyagraha, a Treta Roma, and so forth are reiterated with enough efficiency in their own instance into their own distinct ideas, and inherit within themselves their own distinct formal material ideas, details, information, specific archetypes. I could digress back onto my own condition right here and now. However, I simply do like very much, in fact, where the process of my logic has ended up to for this point in time. Therefore, I will take up and continue this train of thought as soon as I can with her. I do not disappoint her, my very own frigid companion. Never have, never am, and never will. To remark about our present experience together in this instance, alongside the Death Requiem film, I propose over to her that I'm utterly and excessively thrilled and excited that she herself reveals to me finally and observes that this film is revealed to the public, and that she promises me to watch it in its general entirety from its own beginning to end, of course, as I do desire this of her, and to impart her own simply very cherished, desirable, and truly significant intelligence over to me. All this positive intention from her is simply to die for, with my own passionate pleasure and strong reasonable satisfaction. I do think that I understand her present household situation reasonably enough right now. Therefore, as I miss her terribly, and desire of her own actual companionship together with me, and to be alongside her ever the more, for now I will only anticipate that her present calamitous household situation resolves finally into the very patience and peace that she aims for, so that by the 1st of October she and I are determined to return to each other with universal endurance, frequent association, and absolute strength. As I say it once again, I miss her terribly, but there is no way in the hell that signifies otherwise this total life experience that she and I are determined ever to resolve, separate, or depart from, or to even perish from each other, neither with any swiftness nor with any gradualness over the course of our final time. She shall find herself painting once again with that good, noble creativity of hers, always and ever afterward, sharing herself with her visionary experience together and along by my side, listening together and along by my side to my own music and so forth. This present calamitous time for her, this present ultimately hopeless time for me, shall pass quickly with each other together, soon enough indeed. Frigg, my very own dearest and most revered companion, I love absolutely everything about her, respect absolutely everything to do with her, and adore absolutely everything concerning her. I really do, with my own utmost honest and sincere conviction of her. I reside for now, indeed, with my continued love and greatest respect for her, my eternal, everlasting, life-conscious, and absolute companion. I am now finally waving, embracing, picking her up, and holding her in my arms in return. September 24, 2012. 10 to 2012. The deed is done. This letter must be simple and practicable. To begin with, condemned to Gehenna is gone by now, probably on until 2 or 3 weeks. Yet again, I'm completely alone and isolated from societal identification, probably helplessly, unavoidably, the most absolutely isolated and solitary individual person in the Western experience. Altogether, my own countenance, character, and intellect, as well as alongside my collective objective experience, is to alter completely onto that of the very old wise man archetype. Strong, extremely suppressed passion and sentiment finally break through from the prior extremely advanced fortitude of reason, intellect, and wisdom. The rhetoric of King Lear, Laurence Olivier, Klaus Kinski, reluctantly Adolf Hitler, and so forth, exemplify value motivation as acquire it a part of my own identity by now. The individual subjective life experience is understandably determinable by fixed pattern recurrence. It is difficult to return to the distinct logical premises that led to the following conclusion. However, I have since understood the recognition of the year of 2005 to 2006, that which signifies one whole year of preliminary introduction, up until the years of 2006 to 2008, that which signify the Kali identity of Tor, my own Satya term as a part of the entire individual subjective experience of general Kali Yuga. The specific latter term signifies from the years of 2006 on until 2012. The years of 2008 to 2010, that of which signified the Dvapara identity of Iden, my own Treta term is the specific experience of Kali Yuga explained above. The years of 2011 to 2012, that of which signified the Treta identity of Frigg, my own Dvapara term. This Treta identity generally speaks volumes of particular affirmative too. Understandably, by October of 2012, during more or less at least the 10th date of the month to at most the 13th, as determinable by the fixed pattern recurrence, of which the individual subjective experience of general Kali Yuga had clearly understandably begun during at least the 10th to at most the 13th date of the month of October of 2006. The Kali term is to begin notably. I reason that the true solitude and complete isolation from societal life experience is to be notable on to at least 4 complete years, or to 48 months, essentially perceived from the particular signification for the cast-away cinema, of which Mr. Noland is to pass 4 complete years, truly isolated and completely solitary from each and every societal and any societal life experience. For cause and effect reasoning irresolute, a completely relative condition to my own individual subjective experience. If not 48 months of true solitude and complete isolation and so forth, then the completely damnable negative effect of 48 years. This latter probability is essentially the most pessimistic outcome imaginable in a specific individual subjective life experience. Its own potential is very possible, though still as much as the 48-month scenario demonstration, in which this latter probability is universally undeniable and unavoidable to occur, that by at least 48 months of a justifiable, formalized, legitimatized, and appropriately reasoned true solitude and complete isolation of the individual subjective life experience, the final, complete, ultimate form of the very significant, beloved identity of my own, should truly, logically, and actually emerge as part of my very own self, very likely to reasonably, desirably, and reproductively remain alongside together with me until the end of my very own life experience. I have formalized and materialized the potentiality of as much the actual attribution and predication concerning her countenance, character, and intellect as I reasonably could do so during the prior day. To begin with, it is understandable that it is to be a she in comparison to the very first beloved of mine, of which it was evidently a he. However, in the specific instance, the particular youth and inexperience of Homeric work was everywhere to be found in the generation. Understandably, father to son deviance. She should be named something familiar to, or in actuality that of Xxii, or if not, then her name should indicate something familiar to the lady, lazy, Leonie, there it is, Leonie, or even Lisa, Lisa, with the formal L, it is almost certain. Her surname is far too incomprehensible to potentially determine to myself right now. She's probably to be in her early 30s. I should be at least 29 by then. The age of mine in specific is unclear to me right now, for 29 signifies a dead, empty number. At least by 31, such a specific number, 31 signifies an appropriate truth. 3 and 1 together signify 4 to begin with. 4 signifies final, ultimate, complete identity, and so forth. If I am to be at least 31 by now, then this ideal formal beloved should probably be in her mid-30s, though not too much moreover, for such would indicate an inappropriate distance, irrelativity, dissimilarity, a part of our own mutual identity. She's probably to be from somewhere familiar to, or in actuality that of, Sweden. She's to speak fluent English, of course, essentially and appropriately the best. If not, then her original place should indicate somewhere familiar to that of Nordic Europa, Norway, Finland, Denmark, or Britain. But if not so, then that of somewhere familiar to Eastern Europa, most significantly Poland, but it's possibly Slovakia, Czech Republic, or even Russia. I'm in general, of course, to be located potentially anywhere a part of the West by then. I do not speculate further of this here. She is probably to dress customarily in long skirts and dresses. Be amazingly physically perceptibly familiar to, for some advanced mysterious reason, a more well-stocked carried Lisa Kudrow, a more or less 140 or so pounds, name withheld, finally so ultim so, nevertheless, finally so ultim so, at more or less 140 or so pounds, or at more or less 5 feet 10 inches or so tall. She's probably to be anal retentive, an extremely significant application as part of the sexual nature of our own mutual experience. Fundamentally vegetarian, even vegan, with a significant nutritional preference for light fruit as well as light leaves. She's to be probably humorous, but essentially serious. Her humor should be distinct and acquired. Of course, once it is understood, it is to provide an inexhaustible supply of legitimate, authentic, cheerful reproduction. Concerning her very own intellect, she is to be significantly appropriately reasoned, clearly intellectual, truly wise, effectively logical, determinedly identifiable with intellectual wisdom, metaphysical speculation, religious faith, belief, even superstition, and so forth. She is to be understandably complete indication, signification of a satya identification, comprising all this altogether with her very own countenance, character, and even intellect, or insofar as each and anything determinable concerning her is to be identified with satya, spring, formal wisdom. Footnote verbatim, please. At the time that this written article was to have been written, particularly so, and relative to the name withheld, particularly so, finally so, ultimately so, finally so, eternally so, ultimately so, forever and ever the more so. True and emphasis term final, and emphasis term amen. True and emphasis final, and emphasis term amen. Intellect, of course, fluctuates the most swiftly of the specific threefold generation. Character more or less mean swiftly. Countenance the least swiftly. Whether she is to be civilly occupied and financially lucrative or not, this particular concern does not interest me hardly any at all. As such, I very understandably do not desire any clear, clever, hostile wrath, envy, jealousy, pride between the two of us whatsoever. If she is employed, she is probably to identify with an effective architect, or even as a genuine artist or a genuine musician. Something familiar, indicative to clear and strong perception and clear and strong generative sensibility. She's probably not to use biologically fraudulent and deceptive material at all whatsoever, disdainful completely of even alcohol poison. By the passage of at least 48 months, having this passage begun by more or less the 10th to 13th date of the month of October, the year 2012, I reason that most significantly by the 31st year of my own specific life experience, the final, ultimate, complete, very formal, significant identification of my own beloved archetype shall probably emerge onto my own life experience. The essential commencement of the formal spring fire companionship shall begin to last essentially and properly until the end of my individual subjective life experience. If not by my age of 31, then very probably the specific life experience indicates a true solitude and complete isolation from societal life experience till the very end of itself. The very end being likely by 72, but by no more than 73 years of such a negative, damnable life experience. In the meantime, for now, however, I was at first exceptionally reluctant to admit of this, but since then I understand and accept the extremely significant term that which is necessary to follow, the extremely significant term that is to concern a specific true solitude and complete isolation from societal life experience, with a general sequence of time effective from at least 48 months to more or less 48 years. If more or less 48 years, such a significant term indicates its true end, finally only by total death, of each and every physical, sentimental, and intellectual actuality of its generation and corruption. In any event, frig, she's understandably necessarily not my beloved by now. It was sufferable enough to experience her own identity as a very evidently unrequited loving companion, but to experience her friendship as some merely insignificant trifle is almost far too excessively sufferable for my own self to comprehend. For her identity altogether has signified, does signify, and still shall signify, the clearly absolute beloved companionship of my own life experience. But she herself is not of my very own breed, order, and rank. Though everything about her identity, yet again I still, from here on now onward, resolve to universally affirm, preserve, and commensurately desire to identify her as, for now, the easily, most evidently significant, fundamental, appropriate, beautiful, individual person, alongside together my general life experience. Even so, after the 13th of October, I still consistently resolve to acknowledge her in this as such. Her very ideal image remains absolutely strongly fixed upon my own desktop screen. The colorful bubbles still jettison forth from her image and indicate her very bright, warm, friendly identity. The dead computer artifact understandably indicates everything concerning her, alongside the internet friends that I am likely never going to actually know or never going to actually perceive as part of my very own subjective life experience. However, I proclaim that enough, still this is good. For the particular time being, of course, an actual societal life experience is not completely finished, annihilated, most significantly concerning the very probable emergence or arrival of my very final, ultimate, complete, and formal beloved companion. Nancy, as I call her for her now, I know that she, Frigg, in particular, probably understands the very significant reason for prior having asserted that proposed name of Jort, particularly on to me, as part of Frigg's own singular foreshadowing of her very own probable notable arrival. For the arrived very effective Tretta beloved hinted for the very probable emergence, arrival, final Satya beloved. Though for the particular time being, of course, I resolve into an extremely reluctant, though understandably acceptable patience peace, waiting until then to understandably actually experience the very significant beloved's own final, ultimate, complete, and formal emergence arrival. October 2, 2012. 10/10/2012. Frigg, my final companion, good night, rest well. Very unique channel, great stuff. Thank you. Greetings from Pittsburgh. Philip Rostek, 2011. Hello, welcome. Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for the invitation. Greetings from Spain. Beyond Cavita, 2011. That is so nice. All's well. Thank you for your kindness. I hope you're fine, happy, and well too. Wish you a splendid week ahead with lots of love, peace, shine, bright, dear new friend, Odin. Your name is beautiful. Hugs from heart. Beyond Cavita, 2011. Wow, you really have a great channel. We have a few things in common: music and philosophy. Kind regards, Mariano Facundo Ramos Villarreal, 2011. Thank you for the invite. I see you have a lot of interests and an interesting channel as a result. It is a pleasure to meet you. My 35X Vision, 2011. Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me to your friends. Very nice to meet you. Have a wonderful week. Vivaldiana 1, 2011. Dear Odin, thanks a lot for your invites. The list of books and music are quite inspiring. Best, M. Andreas Martin, 2011. Good morning, Odin. Thank you for your invitation. Have a nice week. Lil D146, 146, 2011. Thank you for the invites. Take care, Victoria. Victoria Club, 2011. Brings back memories. Thanks. Best, Greg. Smoke Fruit, 2011. You have a really nice channel. Thank you for the invites. Tealial, 2011. Thank you for the invites. Dharma Saves the Karma, 2011. Thank you, Odin, for your kind invites. Have a great week, Ankaberg, 2011. Thank you for the friend request. Of course, accepted. Uli, Vipuyos, 2011. Thank you so much for the friend request. It was very nice of you to ask. Please keep in touch. Joe, Deborah Agrifoglio, 2011. Hey, Norse Wagnerites. Devin Cowan, 2011. Hello, Odin. Thank you for the friend invites. You have a really great channel here. Love, Elena. Elena Amari Kura. Goodness. Elena Amari Ukai, 2011. And what's your name? DGD 0697, 2011. Nice name. DGD 0697, 2011. Hello. Thank you so much for the friendship. I gladly accept, and it is a real honor to be friends with you. You have an amazing channel and some really nice videos. Keep it up and have a very lovely week. Greetings from Australia. The Heavenly Tears, 2011. Hi, Odin. Thank you for your friendship. You are outstanding. I appreciate very highly your taste of both music and reading. I'm a bit above the cultural average too, like e.g. Richard Wagner's overtures. Siegfried is my favorite, but Die Valkyrie is fine as well. Shakespeare's King dramas, Macbeth overall. I was keen on philosophy during university years, but you are an intellectual skyscraper, and yet young. Very good. Go on this high-quality way. Anyway, I like hiking, mountains, snow, history, especially thinking too. Have a fun, shiny day every day and enjoy. Always to write, read, think, and play. Generally in the Homo Ludens means George, a Blackmore and fun fan melody drummer from Hungary. GB Wagner 1, 2011. Thank you for the invite. Mr. Best of my love, 2011. Ever since Happiness has heard your name, she's been running through the streets. Trying to find you. Hafiz. Joy and wonder to you, my friend. CG Kathmandu, 2011. Thank you for subscribing. You have very interesting work on your channel. Best wishes. My 35X Vision, 2011. May God grant you always a sunbeam to warm you, a moonbeam to charm you, a sheltering angel so nothing can harm you, laughter to cheer you, a faithful friend near you, and whenever you pray, heaven to hear you. Blessings and wonder, my friend, CG Kathmandu, 2011. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. Oscar Wilde. Blessings and joy in your living, my friend, CG Kathmandu, 2011. Grateful for the friendship offer. Absolutely accepted. Mallarite, 2011. Thank you for accepting my invite. Your profile is remarkable, especially your book list. So many things there to admire, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche among them. My channel is still growing, and I'm very pleased to count you as one of my friends. Frigg. Love in a Cold Climate, 2011. What an unexpected and welcome surprise to see you on my channel and read your very astute words on Jake Baddeley. Some say he is English, others say he is Dutch. Either way, I think he is marvelous and carries the torch for true and beautiful art expressed in an ancient way. It is that very esoteric and ineffable quality that attracts me. I'm glad he spoke to you. So much today is ugly and contributes to our spiritual decay. Much love, Frigg, 2011. My dear friend, I would not know where to begin. Look at your profile. Amazing. You're so well read, and it all means something to me, even if I haven't read it. I hate the postmodern West we live in. All I can do is ride the tiger in the hope of a new golden age. I shall ponder your channel and come back. I think you would make a marvelous dinner guest. Frigg, 2011. Thank you for your very interesting thoughts on my channel once again. I actually think the Western spirit is doomed to complete annihilation, and that the destruction process has accelerated greatly over the last 50 years. I see no hope for stopping the unstoppable, only the necessity to take a stand against it and fight, as that is all that we have is left to us. As that is all we have left to us. Pessimism or realism, I really cannot say. For 2011. I'll come here more often, Odin. Right now I'm very upset as I have just watched a video of a mighty oak felled here in the United Kingdom. No one seems to give a damn except 2 horses. It is amazing and terrible, and I'll send it to you. I'm ashamed to be part of humanity now when I see such things. We have lost touch with all that our ancestors held dear, and I'm truly angry and ashamed. Talk to you soon, my dear friend. Frigg, 2011. Thank you so much, Odin. I shall return here and write properly tomorrow. Your devoted friend, Frigg, 2011. Hello, Odin. La Cenerentola has always been my favorite Rossini opera. I love his warmth and his humor, none of which has dated, and given the right treatment, it can seem as fresh and funny as if it were written only yesterday. This production is probably my favorite, and although it is an incredibly funny opera, some of the music is heartbreakingly beautiful and quite moving. Glad I recalled happy memories for you. Kisses, Frigg, 2011. Hello, dear Odin. Does John Bauer speak to you? I think maybe he does. I'm glad to be back, and you will be hearing from me. Frigg, 2011. Yes, Odin. For me, late night reflections can be some of the saddest. It was a lovely video, I agree. Much love to you from Frigg, September 2011. Hello, dear Odin. I have been very busy at work and will be writing to you as soon as I can, sending my love to you until then. I love your background. It reminds me of a curtain. I often wonder if Polonius is standing behind it. Frigg, October 2011. My dear friend Odin, it seems that I'm monopolizing your channel. Thank you so much for your comments on my channel. Indeed, you have understood perfectly, but then I knew you would. Frigg, October 2011. LOL. Yes, Odin, it's bright and silly, isn't it? I love the Puffin books. I believe they were based here in the United Kingdom, but I can't be sure. Just like the more grown-up relation, the Penguin book. That I would ring the changes. I'm very happy you approved. Frigg, September to October 2011. Hello, my dear friend Odin. I've come to send you special ancient pagan blessings for Samhain. This is the time to remember our ancestors, and I know this is something dear to your heart as well as my own. With my love, Frigg, October 2011. I'm glad you liked my wickedness today, Odin. I loved the Bewitched series. They had a style and a cleverness that was so simple, and we as children loved them. We no need for violence and noise to make us happy then. A twitch of her nose and we were in heaven, believing that believing that if we tried hard enough, we too could have the washing up done without lifting a finger. Frigg, November 2011. Thank you very much for your kind invite. As soon as I saw your channel, I did not hesitate. It is wonderful, and I look forward to listening very soon. Freya, Gaia streamer, November 2011. Hello, my dear Odin. I hope you approve of my channel tonight. There's a very strange magic about this Midsummer Night's Dream version. My favorite. Frigg, November 2011. Have a wonderful weekend, Odin. Freya, November 2011. Hello, dear Odin. I wonder if you know the Hungarian artist on my channel. It is another little foray into my long-lost childhood. He died in Budapest in 1988. And during his life, he gave so much pleasure to children with his beautiful paintings and lino cuts. Sending you my love, Frigg, November 2011. Hello, my spiritual brother. I'm glad that you accepted my friend invite and find kinship in my Weltanschauung. The expression of beauty and spirituality that your channel represents is an oasis in a western desert. Roman salute to our friendship, Odin. Carpe Diem, 811, Ain1, November 2011. I knew you would like it, Odin. For me too, it is the world at its best. Twilight, woods, and the moon. What a great comment below mine. Carpe Diem, 811, Ain1, Fig, November 2011. Thank you for the comment, and I'm glad you liked my channel tonight. I really love Walton's music, written especially for Laurence Olivier's film Henry V. Walton is quintessentially English in his compositions, and his music speaks to me of long-lost kings and battles, and of course the whole Shakespearean experience. He also did the music for Olivier's Hamlet. Thrilling stuff indeed. Good to see you, Odin. Frig, November 2011. Odin, you are an incredible person. You carry a wonderful array of knowledge in your mind that fascinates me and others, no doubt. Your thirst for knowledge never disappears. Thank you, too, for your kindness and words of encouragement and help. I'm sincerely very grateful. I will indeed let you know when I have snow and will take photos. Freya, December 2011. Hello, dear Odin. I'm so happy to share your music with others, especially Freya here below, who has discovered, like me, what an exceptional person you are. I chose my background to complement your video because I felt she could be representational of sublimity. The laurel wreath about her head is symbolic of poetry, and that she was purity itself. Oh, and the colors complemented it too. Frigg, December 2011. Yes, Odin, I know that it would meet with your approval. One of my all-time favorite films. I only wish that they had spoken with German, but as the director was Visconti, I suppose that it is understandable. Strangely enough, if you watch Berger's Mouth, which I do quite a bit, you'll see, I think that he's speaking English. Very odd. If only it were dubbed in German, but if you can have everything, it is still a masterpiece, and 3 hours was still not long enough for me. Frig, December 2011. I just watched the clip you have of Nietzsche. It looks really authentic. It is really, really touching. That mind was so intense and full of philosophy, yet he is now so quiet. I felt so very sad for him. It is a wonderful clip to see, though. Have a lovely evening. Freya. December 2011. I hope my channel finds your approval today, Odin. Your videos are so marvelous. Much love. Frigg, December 2011. It is so good to see and read your words and thoughts on life almost every day, Odin. You are a wonderful person to know here. Freya, December 2011. So true below me, Freya. Frigg, December 2011. Yes, the painter is Russian and a woman. Both her parents were artists. I love her sensual brushstrokes and her vibrant portrayal of feminine beauty and womanhood. These are real women to me, not those sticks you see nowadays, but earthy, blooming women, full of tenderness and complete confidence in themselves. I'm so glad you like her work. For me, the realist paintings are always the greatest. Frigg, December 2011. Just as I was leaving my computer for the evening, I see your new music. I've added it to my watch list and look forward to listening tomorrow. I'm always interested to hear your piano music. I wish for you a beautiful evening, Odin. Freya, December 2011. Thank you, Odin. I felt the image to be soft and undisturbed. A mossy world where no men could be found in the perfect surroundings to bury dying love. I love your music on that video, Odin. Very much heartfelt and resigned. Frigg, December 2011. Your music today has been a real pleasure for me, Odin, and I look forward to more romantic music, too, if you so decide this in the future, and also your videos. I've only just noticed on your music section, Ulver and Morbid Angel. Now that has got my attention, too. Have a wonderful evening, Odin. It's very starry here again, so lovely. With all good wishes for you, Freya, December 2011. Have a wonderful weekend, Odin, and thank you for all your kind messages to me. You are an incredible person to know, and I wish nothing but the best for you now and always. With my love, Freya, December 2011. Love your latest videos, Odin. They are a joy to my ear, and I feel better for listening to them. I send my love to you. Hope your weekend progresses well, and that maybe we will have some more music from you in the coming days. Much love, Flake, December 2011. Hello, Odin. I hope your evening is well for you. It is morning for me. I survived going out last night for the first time. It was good to catch up with my friend and have a laugh. I was happy to come home, though, and it was a starry evening, so I was blessed coming home to an evening like that. I hope your music is going well for you too. I look forward, as always, to hearing more. I'll speak to you this evening, my friend. I look forward to this very much. With love, Freya. Freya, December 2011. I'm so pleased that you're pleased. I loved it and felt the background. It was imbued with the same noble intent as the video. It is a pleasure for me. I shall be using another one very soon. All my love, Frigg. Frigg, December 2011. Feel proud, Odin, of Reminiscences 1, 2, and 3. You have worked so hard on these, and they are again a real pleasure to hear. They hold so much chaotic notes, but then gradually fall to the wonderful softness I love with your music. Hope it is not too cold in your home. It's freezing cold in Wales. I send my love and good wishes for you, Freya. Freya, December 2011. Just dropping in to say hello, Odin, and to send my love. I'll be viewing your Reminiscences very soon and looking forward to it. Freya is right. It is freezing here right now, and likely to get colder still. Keep wrapped up, but enjoy the cold too. Much love, Frigg, December 2011. Hi, Odin. Just to say you are my thoughts, and I wish for you to have a really good weekend. I thought Wales would have had snow today. It's cold here again. Every night it is starry. I love it. I hope your music is going good for you too. Look forward to hearing. With love, Freya. Freya, December 2011. Good morning, dear Odin. It is very cold here, and the Yuletide crowds are really bustling now. I couldn't wait to get away from them all yesterday. I hope you're well and composing another very special video for us soon. My love to you for now, Frigg, kisses. Frigg, December 2011. Good morning, Odin. You've done all three? How wonderful. I'm looking forward to listening this morning very much. After a terrible storm last night, I have awoken to a huge hailstorm. Something is on its way. I did not think it would cheer me, but it has somehow. I want the snow now, too. With all my love and best of wishes for you, Freya. Freya, December 2011. Good morning, Odin. I know you're snowed in, so I hope you are keeping warm and cozy. Just to say that I have listened to the first of your new videos and loved it as usual. You never disappoint. I will listen to the rest during the day. I can't quite make out the chosen painter, so I may feature your video with the background of my choice. Hope that sits well with you. Much love for now. Hope your fingers stay warm enough for you to type. Frigg, December 2011. Wonderful, Odin. I shall give it some thoughts, but not too long, as I'm eager to put the work on my channel. For now, keep warm, and I send you my love. For kisses, Frigg, December 2011. I featured your video this morning, Odin. I hope you're pleased with the result. I went for something tender as befitted the piece. All my love for now. Kisses, Frigg, December 2011. My dear Odin, I've just commented on part 3 of Reminiscences of my mother, but it is not showing a YouTube blip, no doubt. I shall return later to try again. You'll probably end up with 3 or 4 with the same comment on there. Much love, Frigg, December 2011. A wonderful evening wished for you, Odin, with all my love and friendship now and always, Freya. Freya, December 2011. Hello, Odin. Now showing on my channel my personal response to part 3. Hope that it meets with your approval. A lot could be read into that picture combined with your musical thoughts. Much love for you. Much love for now. Kisses, Frigg, December 2011. Hi, Odin. How's the weather with you? It is horribly rainy with us. No snow for us at the moment, but black ice in the evenings and early mornings. I hope your day is going happily and contentedly along for you. I hope your music is going very well too. Know how much it means to you. I send my love and good thoughts to you, now and always, Freya. Freya, December 2011. Odin, you have achieved truly beautiful pieces of music here. You have worked so very hard on them, through deep thought and looking into your hearts. It has been a unique and yet a beautiful journey for you, and I know that you have received magic and gift of music. Your own personal, beautiful, unique gift that will never disappear from you. Be proud, my dear friend. It is a wonderful experience for me to have been a part of it somehow. I have enjoyed it immensely and hope to hear more. Rest, relax, and enjoy the holiday now, Odin. With my love always, Freya. Kiss. Freya, December 2011. Good morning, Odin. Thank you for all those lovely words on my channel. Yes, it's hard to believe it has been 5 months since we all got together here. It has been a very happy time for me. Your music and writings, which I have been lucky enough to stumble upon, have now become a big part of YouTube for me. It is a tragedy that YouTube will render all this beauty practically non-existent, and yes, maybe we need to look into Xxii for the future. Xxii in the future, though that in itself is not perfect and will be a compromise. Frig, December 2011. I wish for you a beautiful and relaxing Yule, Odin. Relax and chill now, you deserve to. You have worked so hard. Also, I wish the new year to be everything for you, full of happiness, joy, creativity, music, and most of all, love. With my loving friendship and the very best of wishes for you, Freya. Kiss. Freya, December 2011. Happy Yuletide to you, Odin. May the next year bring happiness, health, and success. With my love, kisses. Freak, December 2011. Good morning, Odin. Today I'm dedicating my channel to the third part of your wonderful trilogy. I hope you approve. It risks being sugary to show my feelings for this piece. Perhaps it is saying that you were once a little angel, or that it shows your guardian angel watching over your life. One could read anything into it, but it is my personal response to this wonderful piece. I shall come back towards the end of the old year to send you proper salutations for the new. With love to my dear friend. Until then, kisses. Frig, December 2011. Hi, Odin. Just checking in to see if you're okay, but I have a feeling you're doing good. I'm thrilled you have recorded your voice again and wish to hear it very soon. Have a lovely afternoon, my dear friend, and I wish for you everything you desire in 2012. And the very best of my wishes go out to you today for the new year ahead. It is always a good time. It's like turning over a brand new white page. With my love, Freya. Freya, December 2011. A very happy new year to you, to my dear... A very happy new year to my dear friend Odin. May we have even happier times in the coming months. With my love, kisses. Vega. This is January 2012. Hi, Odin. I hope 2012 is going good for you, and I would just like to say thank you for your kind words to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. With love, Freya. Freya, January 2012. Odin. Ronald Cyril was a master cartoonist. He influenced a whole generation of artists and animators here and in Odin's Asgard final. His most famous creation was St. Trinian's 1950s shabby private girls' school full of anarchy and pigtails. Terribly funny even today. I grew up with his works and mourn his passing. I'm glad you enjoyed it and that it made you smile. Kisses. Frig, January 2012. Forgive me, Odin, but I have just changed the background to something I think is far more suitable. I like the previous picture, but somehow this one conveys much more the feeling of the primitive and the untouched. I hope you agree, and I thank you for writing for such a lovely message to me. Kisses. Frig, January 2012. Oh, what an inspirational background, Odin. I'm reminded of the highest principles of thought in martial marches. Really wonderful. Thank you for liking my video. I have a feeling a top director must have worked on it. The beautiful juxtaposing of images to music, and what images! Some people just wouldn't understand, but in a strange way it moved me. Quite an achievement when you think its main purpose was to sell me a car. Much love. Kisses. Frig. January 2012. Just wanted to say hi to you on this lovely sunny but cold morning in Wales. I feel spring trying to come in a little though. I like that. Have a pleasant, warm and cozy evening, my dear friend. With love, Freya. Freya, January 2012. My dear Odin, I have just chosen the background for your wonderful Arabic rhapsodies. Once again, I hope you approve. It is a painting by John Frederick Lewis, a British Orientalist. Never mind about page turning and various other criticisms that you yourself level adds it. It is a wonderful and exciting composition, and I'm enthralled by it. Frig, January 2012. In that case, I shall look at Egyptian subjects too, and see if I can find one that will suit. There are many colors and influences in that piece. Neither Arabic or Egyptian images would look out of place. I shall look soon to find another. It is a pleasurable task. With love, kisses. Frig, January 2012. Your music is a joy, Odin. It is so good to see that it makes so many others happy too. I really like that. It is important, and it is such a special, wonderful gift to give to others. You have worked so very hard, and I really look forward to hearing more too of your unique gift of music. With my love, Freya. Freya, January 2012. Hello, Odin. I'm now featuring your Symphony 4 finale. Again, I like the background, I think it complements it well. The finale is beautiful and quite majestic. You have, as Freya says, given us so much pleasure. Kisses. Frigg, January 2012. Sorry, Odin, I'm at the third movement. Frigg, January 2012. Just to say hi and hope that the start of this new week goes good for you, Odin. Thank you, as always, for your kind words. You're a good friend. With love, Freya. Freya, February 2012. Your channel is an intellectual oasis in a sea of muddy hip-hop and prank videos on YouTube. Friend request gratefully accepted. I've also subscribed. Cheers. SPQR Imperator. SPQR Imperator. February 2012. Thanks for your subscription. Rocking Mr. E. February 2012. Hello, my dear friend. Just calling in to pay my respects. I think it's about time I featured another of your videos. Always such a pleasure. Sending my love for now. Frick. February 2012. Thank you so much, Odin. My background shows a traditional sofa that originates from a place close to me at Knoll Park. It is a piece of furniture I've always loved, but has always been far too expensive to buy. It is just a dream. I'm considering your videos very carefully and favor your reminiscences of my mother, so I'm looking into an appropriate background. Of course, I could change my mind and choose another of your videos. I have to listen to them again. Kiss, Frigg, February 2012. Very glad you're so enthused about my channel. I find it very fulfilling when people enjoy my work. Catch you soon, and a pleasure to meet you. Rocking Mr. E. February 2012. Hello, Odin. I hope you enjoy the background that I've chosen for your video. I feel it has a certain charm and poignancy that suits the piece well. It is a woodcut by Arthur Hughes. Much love. Kiss. February 2012. Hi, Odin. Your music this evening has been so pleasurable for me to hear. It is beautifully played, and it is beginning to get difficult for me to pick a favorite, but I chose a little while back. I wish you to enjoy the forthcoming weekend and relax and enjoy all the wonder of nature you are surrounded with where you live. I try as much as I can and miss it when I do not get the opportunity due to lack of time. I'm determined to enjoy the sea more too, and forests close to where I live, which will wake up soon with spring coming. Beautiful time of year. Anyway, I'm proud to know you as a friend here, and I'm so happy for you. With regards to your creative spirit and love and gift of music. Have a wonderful weekend, Odin. Your friend, Freya, February 2012. Good morning, Odin. I was very proud to display your latest video on my channel this morning. I think it is sublime. With much love, kisses. February 2012. Thank you for your appreciative words, Odin. It is the least I can do for such a labor of love and your total commitment to your art. I will feature the second part soon, as that has such magic moments within it. My love to you. Kisses. February 2012. My dear Odin, I'll just try to send you a private message. It is not showing in my sent box. Furthermore, the message that you sent me earlier shows that it is to me from myself. Another YouTube blip, I suspect. Much love to you this morning. February 2012. No, Odin, nothing's received in my inbox. Because February 2012. Hello, Odin. Apparently people are having more problems with YouTube sending them messages to say I have friend lock on. This is not the case, and it's just another blip. Thought I would warn you. All my love kisses. February 2012. Good morning, my dear friend. Thought I would call in and say hello. The sun is shining here, but it's very cold, which is wonderful. Good day for a walk, I think. I'll be back with you later. Kisses. February 2012. Hello, my friend. Well, I've changed one video for another, from an everlasting companion to an Arabic rhapsody. Think I'll just sit back and enjoy it. Much love to you. Kisses. February 2012. Hi, Odin. I hope you're well, and I have been thinking about you and will keep in touch very soon. With love, Freya. February 2012. Good morning, my dear friend. Please visit my channel to see your work very proudly displayed. The painting was Sleep in His Brother Death by John William Waterhouse, of course. I hope that you approve as always, and shall be listening and commenting on the rest of the piece today. With love, kisses. February 2012. Hello, my friend. I hope you're good and happy. I see you have shared with us here your gift of music, and I'll listen very soon. Very interesting, grand painting too. Well, it has arrived out in Wales. Snow. It is very, very pretty, and we have been out in it. I loved every minute. Did not think I would, but I did. Frozen now. I hope it is still with me on Sunday, on Allah's Day, on Lord's Day. I hope it is still with me on Lord's Day, as I want to take pictures this time. I wish you a happy and warm here day. I hope it is still with me on Lord's Day, as I want to take pictures this time. I wish for you a happy and warm. I wish for you a happy and warm Heroes Day evening, coupled with a wonderfully creative and lovely weekend for you. I really do. With my love, Odin. Freya. It's February 2012. Good morning, my friend. I hope that you approve of my channel today. It is a wonderful video. Much love. February 2012. Hello, my friend. I changed my channel this morning to show part 2 of Tears and Light. However, I can't send any private messages as YouTube has yet another blip. Much love for now. Kisses. It's February 2012. Hi, Odin. Going to listen to your music a little now. I hope you're okay. All the snow has gone, and spring is trying so hard to come here for us in Wales. I like that and hope it does soon. I can see, again, you have been so busy with your piano music, and I think it will take me a while, but I know you do not mind this. I'll start from your earlier ones if you do not mind, or I may lose track. Take care, my dear friend. With my love and friendship for you, as always, Freya. Kiss. Freya. February 2012. Hi, Odin, and happy Valentine's Day to you too. Yes, it would be good to catch up. I will private message this evening to you. I would like to. Take care, Odin. With love, Freya. February 2012. Happy Valentine's Day, Maestro. Kisses. February 2012. Hello, Maestro. Now we have lost our avatars. Ha ha ha. Tonight I'm featuring your regal and sweeping work, Time and Eternity. I love it and hope that the presentation finds favor as always. Kiss. February 2012. Evening to you, Odin. I see you have another piece, Outer Space. Can't wait to listen to this, but we'll save it for later on this evening. Thank you for your very kind message to me too, which I have received and read. I will reply and will not forget. It was a lovely message, thank you. Snow again for you? It has gone for me now. It is raining here in a damp day. It must be very beautiful where you are. Valentine's was a very happy day for me, and I will tell you more soon. Take care, Odin, and enjoy your evening. Love, Freya. February 2012. Have a lovely weekend, Odin. Have a lovely weekend, Odin, and thank you for your kind comments. I will write to you soon. I wish to. It is not for not wanting to, it is simply I'm blinded by love. Once again, take care too, and have fun in the snow. Freya, February 2012. My dear friend, I hope you like my American presentation for your wonderful new work. I hope it brings you new listeners. Love to you. Kisses. February 2012. Hello, my dear. Yes, private message received. I shall write to you today. The urn on my background is Greekian and made of a beautiful copper mineral called malachite, which gives off this glorious color. I'm so glad you're pleased with the result, and I think it acts as a great background for your beautiful work. February 2012. Hi, Odin. I hope you're well. I see you have been beautifully creative again. So happy about this. I'll contact you soon, but I know you understand. With love, Freya. Kiss. Freya. February 2012. Oh my, they've changed it. Bit of a surprise this morning. Thank you, Odin, for your private message. I would love to listen to your new music. I, so far, love the title and the painting you have chosen. Love, Freya. February 2012. Odin, they have changed yours already, or did you decide to do it yourself? Mine still has the old format. I see you saved the Bruckner. What a wonderful symphony that is. I've saved a new video and will be listening to it later. As Freya says, the painting is wonderful. Kisses. February 2012. My dear Odin, given the mean, miserable layout, I have done my best to showcase your new video, which I love. You have a new avatar. It makes you look like a wild Victorian composer and poet, which is what you are. Much love, Frigg, March 2012. Hello, my dear friend, Odin. I just wanted to wish you happiness, good health, and love for the start of the new week. Hope things are okay for you, and I love the photograph too. Take care, Freya. Kiss. Freya, March 2012. Well, Odin, it is time to display your wonderful new video again, and I have, of course, chosen the same painting as it is irresistible. I hope once again that you like the presentation. For now, much love. Kisses. Frigg, March 2012. My pleasure, Odin. Your work is wonderful. It should be out there. I have enjoyed the privilege of using them. Frigg, March 2012. Hello, Odin. You're in my thoughts and not forgotten or ignored, although it appears that way at times. I, as you know, am just like a dizzy moth to the flame at times in my life, which has become complicated and busy. I'm fascinated by your Paradise Lost, and the painting is wonderfully full of Grecian Roman strength with dark Gothic underlying tones. I like that. I hope that you are well and that spring is with you too, as it is here in Wales, which is beautiful. I know it is not your favourite, but try and enjoy a little as it can be a pleasing, awakening time of year. I'll write properly soon, my friend, and we'll listen to your music soon too. With my love, Odin, Freya, March 2012. Dear Odin, I hope you like the way I presented your new piece. It looks and sounds very beautiful, I think. Frigg, March 2012. Yes, Odin, Vladimir Kush, an artist that I'm very fond of. Such amazing symbolism, though they call him a surrealist painter. I'm glad you liked his work. He has a very painterly style combined with such strange images of the mind. Much love to you. Kisses. Frigg, March 2012. Hi, Odin. Are you okay? I wish you so much joy, contentment, and happiness this bank holiday weekend, my dear friend. Your music and writing also is so brilliant. It's very true and a pleasure to hear. You're so unique. Take care, Odin. With my love, Freya, March 2012. Hi, Odin. Just came over to you to wish for you a glorious and relaxing day and night. Take it easy and unwind. You have been so wonderfully creative and busy. It can be exhausting, but it is worth it. Take care, my dear friend, and I'm glad you're happy. Love, Freya. Kiss. Freya, March 2012. You're welcome, Freya. You are welcome, Odin. It is an honest comment. Thank you for kindness too and friendship. You're a lovely friend to know here. Thank you. Yes, I'll continue with Moon, who, alongside poetry and music, heals my spiritual well-being, as do the stars in the universe. Freya, March 2012. Hello, Odin. Just tried to send you a private message twice, but I don't think it went through. Can you confirm that you have not received it? Many thanks and much love. Frigg, April 2012. It was a wonderful video, I agree, Odin, and well worth viewing to the end to experience the glories of Wagner's music. I was very moved by the whole story of Ludwig. He was a true king. We owe him such a debt of gratitude for showing us just what can be achieved when one has vision, taste, and inspiration of the highest order. Frigg, April 2012. Hello, Odin. How are you doing? Just wanted to wish for you a good weekend. I hope you're happy and enjoying all things in life. I'm working at the moment full time, so I have been unable to write lengthy messages, but I still want to. I will find time soon. I still have your music to catch up on too. Once again, take care, Odin, and always be creative, content, happy, and enjoy the finer things that life can bring. With my love, Freya, April 2012. My dear Odin, I have chosen a painting by Edmund Dulac called Alone to accompany your music. I shall change the background on and off during the day, and will also feature all the parts of your new work. I hope you approve of the first choice. Much love to you, always. Frigg, April 2012. Hello, Odin. I've just saved all your latest videos to my playlist and will listen to them later. I think the painting by Thomas Cole is a perfect choice. He is one of my favorite painters, and his series of 5 paintings known as The Course of Empire are amongst my favorites. I think the one you have chosen is known as Destruction. A very appropriate choice, as always. Frigg, April 2012. Your daily life is your temple and your religion. Khalil Gibran, may you take the peaceful resonance of your innermost sanctuary into the temple with you this day, my friend. Blessings, Xxii, Kathmandu, May 2012. Hi Odin, just noticed your new upload of Wonderful Drive through Crest Line, which I can't wait to see. I'll keep in touch very soon. Take care, Odin. With love, Freya. Freya, May 2012. Happy birthday. Man is of soul and body, formed for deeds of high resolve, on fancy's boldest wing, to soar unmarried, fearlessly to turn the keenest pangs to peacefulness, and taste the joys which mingled sense and spirit yield. Queen Mab Shelley. Freya, May 2012. Happy birthday, Odin. What lovely quote below from Freya. I too send my love and good wishes belated, though they may be. I've changed my channel for you as a little token of my esteem. With love, Frigg, May 2012. Hello, my dear lovely friend. Just came by to wish you a happy weekend. Is it hot where you are? It is a scorcher in Wales, but I managed to picture a beautiful sunset at the back of my garden last night. The birds have fledged now, and they are still being fed by the mother fruits and nuts from my garden. I leave them, as always. It is lovely to see, but they are timid. It is hard for me to capture them on film, but I really want to try again. I hope you're okay, and that you enjoy your weekend and feel good. Take care, Odin. With love as always, Freya. Freya, May 2012. Hello, Odin. I have changed my channel this morning to feature your new work. I must say it is splendid, and I chose the fabulous painting by Jacques-Louis David to accompany it, full of vigor and energy. I hope you like it. Much love, Frigg, May 2012. Hi, Odin. Your channel is looking wonderful and so full of color, honesty, and is a wonderful intellectual blessing to visit. I've listened to Bathory too, and I enjoyed their only video of One Road to Asa Bay. I know that you have done another video of your thoughts, and I wish to listen to it when I can. I do not like to rush. We just had a warm day in Wales yesterday after torrential rain over the last week, and we are back into cold now. At least I have had one day to enjoy my garden, though intend it a little. Well, take care, my fine friend, and please keep in touch when you wish and are able. With my love, Freya. Freya, May 2012. It must be interesting to go back over your videos, starting at the very beginning to see how you have developed. I'm really happy that you're pleased with my presentation. As always, Odin, it's a pleasure. Much love for now. Kisses. Frick, June 2012. A very fiery channel today to display your latest video. Looks rather impressive, I think, she says humbly. The video is impressive too. Love this piece very much. With my love, kisses. Frick, June 2012. Treble Clef, that's the name. I thought it was A. Trust me to get it wrong. I love the treble clef, such a beautiful musical symbol. I love the fact that this treble clef was on fire, so perfect for your wonderful new piece. Really, it was bursting with stormy sounds and might indeed be said to embody the ancient Roma of our imagination. Frigg, June 2012. Hello, Odin. I have chosen the background for your wonderful new piece. It is a painting by Jacques-Louis David, The Oath of the Horatii. It is very masculine in concept, upholding principles of loyalty, honor, and sacrifice. I believe it complements your vast and mighty music very well. I hope once again that you approve. Frigg, July 2012. I agree. I was looking at Frank Frazetta, who is a masterly artist of that genre, but just couldn't find what I was looking for. Then, like you, I hunted for trumpets, Roman fanfares, and triumphal scenes. It was a struggle, and I probably took the easy way out and chose the David. I'm still looking. Anyway, for now, I'm glad you like it, but let's see if we can come up with something slightly more appropriate. With love, Frank. July 2012. Hi, Odin. I felt awful not writing here and to others, but I have been so very busy lately. I'll keep in touch soon and let you know all that has happened. I've noticed your music and new uploads and so desperately want to listen. I have missed that. I'll make time. I need to. I do hope you're well. I and others are having to wear wellies in summer. Ridiculous. Take care, my dear friend, and I will keep in touch soon. With my love, Freya. Kisses. Freya, July 2012. Odin, you're such a sweet guy. You make me laugh. Wellies is a short term for Wellington boots. They're plastic boots up to the knee to wear in the rain. I'll write to you soon. I've missed you and everyone here too. It's just time at work at the moment for me, but there are nice things too. Take care, my dear kind friend, Freya. Kiss. Freya, July 2012. Conan. Your Centurion is now featured on my channel. Stupid me, not Lawrence Almatadema, but by the painter Jean-Léon Jerome. I like Jean-Léon Jerome. I like this painting very much, though he's not one of my favorites. Many of his subjects upset me, but he was a great painter. This one is a great subject and perfect for your piece. Much love to Freya in her willies below. Kisses. Vig, July 2012. I'm so pleased that you're happy with my choice. I understand your resignation. We live in the Kali Yuga. What more needs to be said? Corruption and shallowness stalks the earth in the minds of many. If your music and words reach only a few, then those few are the lucky ones. Thank you for your kind and uplifting words on my channel. I do not feel worthy of them, but will bask in their warmth nevertheless. Freak. August 2012. October 10.